Hello everyone, my name is Nikhil. So in this course you will learn the MERN stack. So in this course we will create an advanced application with the MERN stack. So we will create the movie booking application in which there will be multiple users. The first will be the admin. So the admin can create the movies and delete the movies as well, but the users can book the movies. So we have this functionality in our application, and this is completely advanced application as well. So let's start with that application. So now I will show you the demo of how the application gonna look. So here we have the demo of that application. So we have the navigation bar, which is designed from the material UI, and then we have just defined here then image, which will be the latest movie release, and this will be the poster of that movie. And after that we can define some more movies inside the cards. So here we have the latest releases on the home page, and in the home page now you can see now we have around 4 movies. After that we can move on to the all movies tab as well. So if we just click on the view all, and then you can see now we have all movies there. So we have Good Luck Zari, we have Carter as well. So now we have just multiple movies inside our application, and then we can move on to the authentication screen as well. So this is the authentication of the user, so we can log in for the user as well. So from here we can log in from the user, and the state is being stored inside the Redux. So we are also using the Redux inside this application, and then we can just log in via the user. So now the user is logged in, so you can see we have the tab of that user as well. So we can click on the user, and then you can see user have the bookings of that movies as well. So we can create the bookings of that movie. So if we just move on to the home page, so here we can also book a movie as well. So if we just click on the book now, so we can just click on the rocketry, then we can just define the seat number as well. It's like 24, and then we can just define the date as well, like date would be something around 30th August. So if we just click on the book now, then the booking would be created. So here we have the pop-up of the booking created, and after that we can move on to the user profile as well. And here you can see we have created the booking of the rocketry at the seat number equals to the 24, and then we have the date as well. So this is the demo of that application. So this will be the user screen, and then we have the search functionality of the movies as well. So we can just search any movie from there. So we can just type here the Good Luck Jerry. So here we have the movie. So if we just click on that, and then we'll be redirected to the movies page where we can just create the booking. After that we can also create the booking here as well. So we can have a seat number as 25, then we can have the date as the 21st August. So if we just click on the book now, so then the booking would be created again. So we have this pop-up, and after that we can move on to the user again. So here you can see now we have new booking as well. Then we can also delete the booking as well. So if we just delete that first booking, that will be the rocketry. So if we just delete that, and we will just redirect it to the home page, and if we just click on the user once again, so here you can see now the booking has been deleted. So we have multiple collections inside this application. So we have the collection of the bookings, we have collection of the users, so we have collection of the movies, and then we have collection of the admin. So the admin can create the movies, but the user cannot create the movies. User can only post a booking of that movie. So bookings and movies and users and admins, so they all are connected to each other. So we have a key like a reference object which is connected to every other collection. So this will be the final demo of that application, and after that we can log out, then we can log in as an admin as well. So we can just log in as an admin, we can just search for that admin, and then we can just log in. After that you can see now we are logged in as an admin as well. So here we have the profile of that admin. So the admin has added 2 movies. So we have the added movies of that admin, so Good Luck Zari and the Carter. So these 2 movies are being added by this admin only that we have just created. And after that we have the profile of that admin as well, like the email, like nikhil@admin.com. So we have this admin. So this is the profile page of the admin as well. After that we have the new functionality in that admin. So the admin can create a new movie as well. So the admin can add a new movie, but the user cannot add a new movie. The user can only book a movie. So we have the title, we have the description, so we are storing the release date, the poster URL, the actors array. So the actors are being added as an array, and after that we can just define the featured movie as well to show onto the home screen. Everything is there inside this application. So let's start building that application. So now let's see about the introduction about the MERN stack. So now what is the MERN stack? So the MERN stack is a combination of the MongoDB, Express.js, React.js and the Node.js. So the MongoDB handles the database operations, the Express.js and the Node.js helps to create the API server, and the React is used to visualize something onto the front end. So they are the combination which creates the combination of the MERN stack. So now what is the MongoDB? So the MongoDB is a NoSQL database which stores the documents in the form of collections instead of the records and tables as per in the SQL database. So if you are coming from the SQL, so the MongoDB stores the documents in the form of collections instead of the records and the tables as in the SQL database. So the collections are the tables and the records are the documents as per in the SQL. MongoDB is a document oriented and open source NoSQL database, and it is one of the most popular and widely used NoSQL database. And now let's move on to the Node.js. So what is the Node.js? So Node.js was a JavaScript engine which was originally built for the browser and now it can work without a browser as well and having some extra APIs with it, and it allows us to run the JavaScript outside of the browser. So what exactly is the Node.js is? So Node.js was just a JavaScript engine which was originally built for the browser. Now it is taken out from the V8 engine of the Chrome, and it is now maintained as a standalone project to help the JavaScript to run outside of the browser. So it's an open source and the server-side runtime environment which is built on the Chrome's V8 engine, and it provides an event-driven and the non-blocking asynchronous input-output operations as well, and the cross-platform runtime applications for building the highly scalable and server-side applications with using JavaScript. So this is the advantage of the Node.js, and after that we can just move on to see what is the Express.js. So what is the Express.js is? So the Express.js is just a web application framework for the Node.js, which helps to ease the process in building the server-side applications. So it is just a web application framework for the Node.js, and it provides various features like making the web applications development fast, and it provides various features that make the web application development fast and easy, which otherwise takes more time only using the Node.js. So it helps us to ease the process. And after that, what is the React.js? So the React.js, we all know it's a JavaScript library to build the fast and scalable and dependable user interfaces, and it's a view part inside the MERN stack. So the models and the controllers comes inside the backend part, and the backend is built with the MongoDB, Express and the Node. So that is a server, and it's a view part in which we will visualize something to the user, like the screens, like the movies, and so much things about this application. So this is a view part. And after that, now we will see about the JWT authentication. So why do we need the JWT authentication inside that? So JWT authentication is an authentication technique in which we provide a token to the user, and then we will encrypt something inside the token, and then we'll verify something with that. So why do we need the JWT authentication? So to verify and provide the access to the user for the application. So we can authenticate the user directly from the password, but with the JWT we can also authorize the user with having some extra security layer inside that. And after that, how to authenticate and authorize? So first we can verify the user's credentials like the email and the password, and then we can just provide the user an access token in which we can perform an operation, like if the user wants to create a movie, like if an admin wants to create a movie, then he or she needs to send back the token, and then we set the token expiration time as well. So first we verify the user's credentials using the email and the password, and after that we give the access token to the user. After that we provide the token expiration time to the user as well. After that, if the user want to create an operation inside this server, then the user needs to give that token only, and then the user needs to give back that token, and then we'll verify that token if the expiration is done or if anything is wrong with that. So we will just decline the transaction, or everything would be accepted. And after that, what is the JWT again? So it just encodes the JSON data inside a signed token. So it creates and encodes the JSON data into a signed token which is shared between two parties. And the two parties, the first party is with the user, and then the second party is the application itself, where we will just verify that token. After that, now we can also share the access token as well. So we can share the access token with the user, and the user gives back the access token as well to the application to verify that token, and then the verification completes of that user. So this is how the authentication and authorization parts completes. So now we will see the workflow of the backend application. So first we will create the API with the Node and the Express.js and the MongoDB. Then we will define multiple collections inside the MongoDB. So the collection would be the users, the movies, the admin, and then the bookings. So we will just interconnect all of that collections as well. And after that, we will just provide an admin collection as well. So we will just provide an admin collection in which the admin have the access to create the movies. And after that, we can also create the front end workflow as well. So first we will create the user interface with the React.js and the Material UI. And then we will just add the Redux for the state management inside that. So the Redux is a library which is used for the complex state management and the application-wide state management. After that, what we will do is we will just call the API. So for showing all of the movies, we call the API. So for creating the movie, so for getting the user details, so for getting the admin details, and for all of the database operation, we need the API calls from the front end. And after that, we can see the application parts. So first, we have the part of the backend. So the backend will be built with the Node.js, MongoDB, Express.js, JWT authentication, the bcrypt.js, and the .env. And then what we will do inside the front end. So the front end would be created by the React.js, the Redux, the React router. So we will use the router of that React as well. And after that, we will just call the APIs from the Axios. So the Axios is also a promise-based HTTP library which is used to call the APIs. And after that, we will just design the UI part with the Material UI. So this is the introduction of that application. So now let's start building that application. So now I'm into the VS Code and I have opened a folder in the VS Code. So you should also open a folder. And after that, now what we will do, so we will create a folder as the backend. So we can just click on that folder icon and then we can have the backend inside that. So now we will get the backend application inside this backend folder. And after that, we can just move on to the backend directory as well through the terminal. So we can just click cd and the backend. Now we are into the backend directory. So now we need to create the brand new Node.js application inside this backend folder. So for that, the command to create the Node.js application would be the npm init. So you need to also install the Node.js in your system as well before moving ahead. So you can install from the nodejs.org. That is the official website of the Node.js. So now let's start creating the Node.js application. So we need to write the command as the npm. It should be the init. So then it will initialize the package.json file into your directory as the backend, and it will contain all of the information about your application. So now you can see now we have the package name. So we can just skip the package name as the backend only. So now we have the backend, and then we have the version. So we can just skip the version as well. So we just hit enter, and then the version will be 1.0.0, and then we have the description. So we can just skip the description as well, and then we have the entry point. So this is very important. So we need to write the entry point. By default it is the index.js, but we will change it to the app.js. So we need to write the app.js with that. And after that, we have the test commands to test the applications, and then git repositories and all of the things. So you can just skip all of the things, and then you can just press enter all of the times. So after all that steps, it will ask you for confirmation. So like now you can see, so these are the information which are to be stored into your package.json file. So now you need to just hit enter, and if you will just hit enter, it will just create the package.json file. So you can just click enter, and now you can see inside this backend folder we have the package.json file which contains all of the information about our application. So we have the main, we have the scripts and all of the things. So now what we will do is now we will create a file as the app.js. So we have the app.js to run the basic Node.js application. So now inside this application, what we will do, first we will just log this something. So now we have the log, and then we will just console.log something like we have the hello world. So now we have the hello world, and now we need to run this application as well. So now to run this application, so we can also write the node app.js. So this will also work, but the correct approach after installing the package.json, it would be that we can create a script as the start. So we can have the start script, and inside that we will use the node. It will be the app.js. So now instead of writing the node app.js, now we can just write npm start. So it will just recognize the start command, and it will just run the node app.js with that. So now if we run the npm start, and now you can see now we have the hello world inside that as well. So now this is how we can just define some commands inside the script. So now you can see now we have the app.js which is working perfectly fine. And now as we have discussed into the introduction section, we need to install some packages to create the API. So for that, the first package which we need to install is the express. So we need to install the npm install, and we can install the express. So now the express.js will be then installed within very few moments. So now the express.js is now installed, and now to verify the installation as well, you can just move on to the package.json, and then you can see now you have the dependencies object, and inside that you have the express as well. And then you can see inside the package.log.json, you also have some information about your application as well, like there will be some modules into your application, and it contains a description of all of your modules. Like we have the version, we have the resolved version, we have the debug versions, and then all of the things with that. Then you can see now we have the node modules as well inside that, and then you can say these are some packages which we need to create the API. And now we need to just close this, and now we need to run into the app.js again. So we need to move on to the app.js, and now we will just create a basic API. So how we can do that? So first we need to just import the express. So we can have the const express will be equals to the require. So we need to just use the require, and the require is used for the import statements. So we have the require, and then you can pass here the string, and inside that string you can pass here the express. So now the express.js will be then imported with this command, and after that what you can do is you can just define a variable as the app. So you can have a const app, and it will be equals to the express. So now the express.js will handle all of the operations into your application, and it is giving the reference to this app variable. After that, now we need to just create the API route. So for that we can use the app.use. So we have the use function to create the API route, and with that we can just define some URL path. So we need to define the same URL path, and after that we can just define some callback function, and then once we will reach to /route as the empty route, and then we need to run the callback. And in the callback there are some parameters, like you have the request, it is a request object, and then you have the response object, and then you have the next function as well. So first we will write the request, response, and the next. So the request is like the request, like front end will request something to the API, and the response is we need to send some response to the front end if front end is requesting something. And the next is used to like move on to the next available middleware. So these are the middleware, and then we use it for the routes. And once you will call the next, so it will just move on to next middleware function. Now we have just defined this middleware, and now what we will do, once we will move on to this route, so we are making a request to this API route, and after that what we will do is now we will just send some response. So we can have a response dot send. So we have the response dot send, and then inside that we can just send any data with that. So we can send hi as well. So now this is how the response dot send works. So we can just send here the hi, and after that what we can do is we can just open a server as well. So to open a server we can use the app dot listen. So it will just listen to any port. So you can just define any port like the 3000, 5000, 9000, but I will just define here the 5000. After that we will also have here the callback as well. So inside the callback what we will do, so we will just log something like we have the connected to localhost the port of the 5000. So we can have the port, and inside that port we can just have the template literals, and then we have the 5000. So we can just remove the strings to the template literals. Now we have the connected to localhost at the rate port of the 5000. So now we can run this application. So we can run this application with the npm start, as we have defined the command inside the package.json. And after that now you can see now our application is listening to the localhost port of the 5000. So now our application is continuously running on that port. And now what we can do is now we can just move on to that port. So we can just open any browser, and then we can just open the localhost the port of the 5000. We can open the port of the 5000. After that if we now just move on to that, now you can see now we have the hi inside that. Now this is how we can create the APIs with the Express.js. So now this is a very simple API, but this is also an API. And then we can just change any method, and then we can just define them HTML as well, because the send contains the body inside that. Like now you can see you can have the paragraph tag, you can have any tags. So this is basically used for the server side renders. And then you can have the h1, and again you can have h1, and here you can have hello again. So you can have a hello, and then you can just restart the application. So you can just stop the terminal and then run the npm start again. After that if you will just refresh the page, now you can see now the hello is in the h1 tag. You can just move on to the page source as well to see if there is h1. Now you can see now you have the h1 inside the hello. So now everything is working perfectly fine, and now we are able to create a API for our application. So now what we will do is now we will just move on to our project, which is a movie booking system. So now let's start building that API for that project. And now for creating that API, so we need some basic things inside our application. So now we need to stop this terminal. As you can see now we stop the terminal, and then we restart the terminal again and again. So we can install a package which is called NodeMon. So we can use that package. So once we will just change anything into any file, into the files of our application, so it will just detect the file changes, and it will automatically restart the application once you will save that file. So we can just install that package as the NodeMon. So we can have the npm install, and we can install it as the development dependency as well. So we can have the -d, and it will be the NodeMon. So we can install the NodeMon with that command. So now we have the npm install as the development dependency. So now this dependency will not be included into the final bundle of our application. Now once you will just move on to the package.json, and now you can see inside the dev dependencies we have the NodeMon as well. Now we need to just change the start script as well. So it should be the NodeMon app.js. So instead of this app.js, so we need to write the NodeMon as the app.js. And now what you can see is now once I will now just comment it out, and now we can just write console.log again as the hello. If we now just start the application with the npm start, and then you can see now we have the NodeMon as the starting of the app.js, and then we have the NodeMon as the clean exit, which is waiting for the file changes. So once you will just change anything into that file, so you can add any exclamation marks. So once you will just save, and then you can see it will automatically detect the file changes, and it reruns your application. So you have the hello with that. So now everything is working perfectly fine. And now you can see you have the npm scripts as well. So you can just start your script with these commands as well. And then we can just uncomment all of the code again. So now you can see now we are importing the Express with the ES5 import, and now the ES5 is outdated, so we can just use the ES6 approach. So for that we can just move on to the package.json file, and then we can just modify some things here. Like after the main app.js, we can just define the type. So the type, we need to define the type as the module. After defining the type, so now you can see your application will throw an error, because now the ES5 modules will not work. So now we need to run the ES6 modules. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to just change the start script as well. So instead of just the node1 app.js, so we need to write some script after that. So we have the node1, and then we can just write the experimental modules, and then slash, and then space. After that, we can just use here the ES as the module specifier, and then we need to write here the resolution will be equals to the node. So this is the start script. So now what we want to do, so now we can just remove the spaces from that. So now this is the start script. So this is the start script. So you have the node1 as the experimental modules, and then you have the ES module specifier, and the resolution equals to the node, and this will just enable the ES6 imports into your application. So now you can just move on to application again, and after that you can just move on to the app.js. And now what you can do is now you can just remove this express. You can just import the express from directly using the import. So you can have import express from, it should be the express. So then everything will work perfectly fine again. So now you can see now we are again connected to the localhost port of the 5000. So everything is working perfectly fine again. So now what we need to do is now we need the database to create the API and to store the data as well. So we need to just move on to the MongoDB database. So we can just move on to the mongodb.com. So we can just remove that URL, and then we can just move on to the MongoDB. So this is the homepage of the MongoDB. So you can just sign in. So you can just click on the sign in on that, and then there will be two options of the sign in. Once will be a GitHub, and then once will be a Google. So you can just try any of them. So I will go ahead with the Google. Now we can just move on into this drop down, and then we can just create a brand new project. So we can just click on the new project. So it will just create a brand new MongoDB project for our application. So now we need to name our project. So we can just name this project as the movie system. So we have the movie booking system. After that, we can just click on the next. It will just create a project with that. So we can just click on the create project button. So it will just create a brand new MongoDB project in our application for our application. And now you will see this screen will appear as the create a database. So now we need to build a database for our application. So we can just click on the build a database button. After that, you can see there will be three options. So if you want to move on with this serverless approach, and it is very advanced approach, so you can just click on that. But if you want a dedicated server for your application, so you can just move ahead with the dedicated, but these two are paid versions. But if you want a free version to test your application, to just learn the basic things about the MongoDB, so you can just move on with the free version. So you can just click on the create, and it is very limited version, so you can just click on the create. And then you can see there will be some default settings, so you can just keep that default settings into your application, and then you can just click on create cluster. So it will just create a brand new cluster for your application with the shared RAM, and then the 512 MB of storage, and then all of the themes. So now you can just click on the create cluster button. After that, you can see the security quick start screen will appear, and then you can just define some basic things, like you need to define the user for our application. So here we need to define the users as well. So we can just define, so we are the admin, so we can just define the user as the admin, and then we can just enter some password, and then we can just auto generate some secure password from the MongoDB. So we can just click on that, and now you can see this is the password that we want to store. So now we can just copy that password, and then we can just store it somewhere. Now I will store it here. And now what we can do is now we can just click on the create user button. It will just create a user for your application. So now you can see now we have the admin user, and then you can see now we have some IP addresses as well. So now what we can do is now we can just move on to the network access, and then we can just add an IP address from there, because it will just give you an option to allow the access from anywhere. So you can just click on that button, and then now you can just allow this database from any server, from any IP address. But if you add the current IP address, then you can just operate with the MongoDB from this IP address only. But I don't want to do that, so I want to do with the allow access from the anywhere. And now we need to just confirm. Now you need to wait for about 3 minutes, and then it will just deploy all of the changes to the MongoDB cloud. So then we can use the MongoDB cloud version. So we can just move on to the MongoDB database only. And then after 1 to 3 minutes, there will be an options of connect, view monitoring, collections, and all of these options will be then appear within very few moments. Then you can see you have the new clusters. It takes between 1 to 3 minutes. So we can just wait for 1 to 3 minutes for that. Now our changes are not deployed to the database. So now we can just click on the connect button, and then you can see now after that you have an option of connect our applications. So we can just connect our application with the MongoDB cloud. So we can just click on that option. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to just copy this URL. So we need to copy this URL to connect. But how can we connect to this? So we need to install the MongoDB driver into our application as well. So what we need to do is we need to install the Mongoose. So the Mongoose is like the official MongoDB driver which runs on the object modeling database. So we can use the Mongoose. So we can have the npm install as the Mongoose. So the Mongoose package will then operate with the MongoDB. Now the Mongoose is installed, and now we can just copy this URL now, and then we can just move on to the application. And now what we need to do is now we need to import the Mongoose. So first we need to import the Mongoose. We have the import Mongoose from the Mongoose, and after that what we can do is now we can just run the Mongoose dot connect. So we have the connect function with the Mongoose, so we can have the connect, and after that what we need to do is we need to pass here the URL. So the URL should be this, and after that you can see now we have the MongoDB srv/admin. So now we need to change this password. This is the space for the password. So we need to write the password that we have just copied. So we need to copy this password, or what we can do is now we can just store this password into the process.env files. So now what we can do with that, so we can just have here the npm install the env file. So we have the .env. So we have the .env with the env, and then it will just enable you to store the informations into the process.environment variables files, and the environment variables are not accessible onto any server or anything, but it will be only accessible in your application. So that is very secure way to store some variables. So now what we can do is now we can just define the file as the .env. So just .env, make sure you don't have anything before that dot, and after that you can just hit enter, and after that you can just define here some things, like you can just define here the MongoDB password or anything, like the password it should be equals to, so we don't need to write any space, so it should be equals to this. So now we need to write the MongoDB password, and now to access this variable, now what we can do is now first we need to import the .env. So we can have the import .env from the .env. After that we need to run the command as the .env.config. So it will just config the .env into your application, and after that we will be able to use the env files and their variables into our application. And after that we can just remove these strings, and then we can just use here the template returns. Just remove that. After that we need to just remove here the password, and instead of that now we can just use the process.environment variables. We can have the environment variables with that. So we can have these expressions, and inside these expressions we can use here the process, and the process is a global variable which is available in the JavaScript and the Node.js. So we can use the process.env. So we have the env which contains some environment variables for our processes, and dot the name of that variable. So we have the name as the MongoDB password. So we can just copy that name, then we can just paste that name here. So we can just paste the name as the process.env.mongodb password. It will just connect with that, and after that the mongoose.connect returns a promise. It returns a promise. So what we can do, we can use the then statements as well. After the connection is successful, now what we can do is now we can just run this code after the connection is successful. So we don't need to open a server if the connection to a database is not successful. So we can just run that here. Now what we can do is now we can just go the app.listen. It will be the localhost port of the 5000. After that what we need to do is we can write the callback again inside that. So inside that we can have a callback as the console.log. It should be the connected to database and server is running. This is also a database operation, and the database operation can fail as well. So we need to handle the errors as well. So we can just use the catch. So if there would be an error, so we will just catch that error. Now if there is an error, so we will just console.log the error, that what is the error. So we can just console.log as of now if we get an error. So after that we can just remove that as well, and now we have this app.js file into our application. So now we can just save, and then we can just run the command as the npm start. So we have the npm start. Now we should see if we are able to connect with the MongoDB database. Now I think we didn't see any log. So now you can see now we have the log as the connected to database and the server is running. So everything is working perfectly fine in our applications. So now we can just build with the project. So now the applications and the connections with the MongoDB and the operations are complete. So now we need to just build that API for our application as well. So now we need to create the API. So now for creating the API, we will just follow the MVC approach. So the MVC approach is the approach which is divided into three parts: the models, views, and the controllers. So the models and the controllers are part of the backend. So we need to build the models of all of the collections. Like the model will contain the schema of the collections, and the schema will contain all of the properties that a collection will then have. Like there will be a collection of users, so user can have these. So all users will have the email, will have their name, will have their passwords. So we need to define their schema that a document will contain those fields inside that. After that, we need to define the controllers into the backend application. So we have the controllers which will contain the routing operations. So we will create a route, and then the route will control, and then once we will move on to a specific route, so that route will be then controlled with the controller functions. Controller are just functions which controls the operations of the routing. And after that, the models and the controllers are part of the backend application, but not for the front end. So for the front end, we need to work on the view part. So the view is the front end part. So that front end will be then built with the React application. So now let's start with the backend first. So now we need to build the model and the controllers. So let's start with the user model. So now let's start with the user model. So we can just build the models and the controllers for the user. And then after that, we will just work for the admin, and then we will just work for the bookings, and then for the movies and all of the things that we want inside this application. So now let's start with the user model and their controllers first. So for that, what we can do is we can just move on to the backend folder, and after that we can just declare a folder as the models. So all of the models of the applications will then contain inside the models folder. After that, we can just create another folder, and it can be controllers. So all of the controller functions will be then inside the controllers, and after that we can just create another folder as the routes. So we can have the routes, and all of the routes will be then containing inside the routes directory. So first we need to create the model for the user. So we need to create the model. So we can just move on to the models folder, and then we can just define a new file. It can be the user, and make sure the U is capital because this is just like a component model. So we can have a user.js. Now we need to just define here the user. So how can we define that? So again, we have the schema inside the Mongoose. So we can use the schema class from the Mongoose. We need to import the Mongoose. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to just create a schema. So we can have a const. It can be a user schema, and it will be equals to a new, it can be a mongoose.schema. So we have the mongoose.schema class from the Mongoose. You can just also declare the mongoose.schema in a separate variable. So you can have a const schema will be equals to the mongoose.schema, and after that, what you can do is you can just define here the schema only. So you can have a new schema, and after that you can just define all of the properties inside that schema. So now this is referring to the schema class, and after that, what are the things that the user will contain? So it will contain the name. We can have the name of the user, and then we need to define an object, and the object will contain some types of the name. So the name type will be equals to the string. So we need to store the string inside the name. So we can have a type as the string. After that, the name is a required property. So we need to add the required. So we can just add the required, and the required, if we add the required, so we need to just fill the name, and if we don't fill the name, so the database will give an error that the name is a required field. And after that, we can just work on the email. So the email will also be an object. It will contain the type. It will be the string. After that, it will contain the required again. So it is also required. Required is equals to the true. And after that, we have another property as the unique. All emails should be unique of every different user. So we can have the unique, and the unique property must be equals to the true. If we just provide any duplicate email to the database, so it will again give you an error. After that, we can just define the password. So we can have the password, and the type of the password will again be the string. We can have the string password. After that, we need to just define the required again. So this is also a required field, would be equals to the true. After that, we have another property as the minimum length. So we can have a min length. So the min length property is a property which will just define the minimum length for the password. So this will just enable the minimum length, and then you can just define the minimum length as the number equals to the 6. So now the password should contain the minimum length of the string would be equals to the 6. So if we provide any less characters, like if you provide 5 characters only, then it will just throw an error. So now we have the schema of the user, and this is very basic schema, but as we will move on to the admin, into the movies, into the bookings, so the schema will get bigger and bigger. And after that we need to just export the schema as well, so we can have the export default. So now we need to just export this model, so we can have the export default as the model. So we can have the mongoose.model, so we can have the model, and then we need to define the name of the model, so we can have the user. After that we need to just define the schema. So now we have defined the name, and then we need to define the schema of the user. We can have a user schema with that, and we are exporting the model of the mongoose for every file. So now in the MongoDB, and this will create a collection of the users, because the MongoDB has a default naming convention, and it will just convert this singular form to the plural form by adding an s to it, and all of the characters will be then available into the smaller case format. So then it will just store inside the users. The model is created, and now we need to just move on to the routes, and then we need to create the route for the user operation. So first we will just create a route, and it can be the user routes.js, and inside that first we will create the route. So we have the router inside the express, in which we can take help from the router, and then we can just build some routes for the get APIs, for the post, for the get request, for the post request, for the delete, update, and for the put request as well. We can just use the express router. So again we need to import the express from the express, and after that we need to just define the router. So we can have the user router. It will contain the routes of the users only, so we have the user router will be equals to, so now we can just define the router as the express dot router. So we have the router class into the express, should be inside the strings. After that we have the express dot router, so we have the router function. After that the router function will give the reference to the router variable. Then we can just use any function from that user router now, like the get or the post. So with the user router dot get, we can have the post, we can have the put, we can have the delete, we can have the patch, or any request that we want to give. So first we will just have the get request, and it will just get all of the user from the database. So as of now we don't have any user, but it will just enable the operations with the MongoDB. So we can have this operation router.get, and after that we need to just move on with this same route. So we need to don't add any route after that, and then after that we need to just define the controller function. So we can also define the controller function here as well, which will contain the request, response, and the next. But the thing is that this file will get bigger and bigger if we have many routes, like we have the get by ID, we can have the update, we can have the delete. So we have so many routes, so it will just increase the length of this file as well. So now with that, what we can do is now we can just move on to the controllers, and then we can just define the controller functions here. So we can have the user test controllers.js, and inside that we can just define that function which will work for here. So we will point to that function which will be created inside the users controller. So we can have the export const at the get all users, and it will be an asynchronous function because it is an asynchronous task, and it will contain the parameters that the request, response, and the next. After that we can just define this function. After that what we need to do is now first we need to work with the model, and then we need to get all of the records of that model, of that collection. So we can just define the let users, and after that we can just add the try catch block. So we have the try, and after the try we can have the catch. So the catch, if we get an error, so we will just return the error. So we will just return the error, or we can just move on to the next available middleware. So we have the next, and then we will just pass the error with that. Now inside this try, now what we need to do is now we need to just connect with the MongoDB to get all of the records of the users. We can have the users will be equals to, so then we have the function with the model, so we can import the user model first. So then we have the function with the find. So we can have here the find with the mongoose. So the mongoose provide you function as the find, and it will just find all of the document with that query, and it returns an array. So now inside the find you need to pass the query, and if you don't pass any query, it will just match all of the records, and it will just give you all of the records with that. So this is a find, and it gives you the promise as well. So you need to just await for this as well. So you can have the await as the users.find. So you have defined the users, and here you are just giving the values to the user. And after that you can have some validations check as well. If the user is a falsy value, so you can have the if users. If you don't have the users, like if the users is a falsy value, So you can just return the response. So you can have the response. So now you need to just return the response with that status and with a JSON message. So this is the API, and the response dot send was a simple thing, but here we need to just send some response. So we can run response dot status would be equals to the 500 as the internal server error, and then we can add a JSON message with that, and the message will be equals to, we can have the message as the unexpected error occurred. And after that, if we have passed this validation check, now what we can do, we can just have here the return the response dot status would be equals to the 200, which is okay. And then we can just send the JSON again, and the JSON will contain an object. It will contain the object as the users only. So we can just send here the users, and then you can just write the users / users as well. But with the ES6, we don't need to write if we have the same name like the users. So now this function will be then available to use inside the user routes. So now what we are doing inside this function, so we have just defined the users, and then we are try, and then we are using inside the try catch block because it is a database operation and it can fail as well. And then we are checking if we don't have the users. If the users is a false value, then we need to just return the response dot status as the 500 and the JSON message as the message, which will be as the unexpected error occurred. But if we pass the validation checks, then everything would work fine, and then we will be able to send the response as the 200 with the status of the 200 with the JSON of the users containing all of the users with that. So now we can just move on to the user routes, and here we can just define the controller function here. So after the get, we need to point get all users. So we have the get all users. Now this function is being pointed. Now we need to just move on, and then we need to use the router inside the middleware. So now inside the main app.js file, now we need to just write the middleware which will be available for the user routes. So for that, we need to just export this router as well. So we have the export default as the user router, because now the user router will be then default exported, and now we need to work on the user router module. So now we can just move on to the app.js, and here we can just define the middlewares inside that. We can have the spacing for the middlewares, and after that we need to paste the middlewares. So we can have the app.use. So we have the first middleware function, and after that we can just pass the URL. Now this URL will be then followed by this URL. So now we need to define the URL. So the URL will be /users. So now what are we doing here is, now we are just defining the users. So it should be the user. So now we have the route as the user, and after that we need to pass here the router function. So we have the user router. So now this middleware will then work for all of the user /routes. And so now this URL, as we have defined here, will be then followed by this URL. So first we need to write the localhost 5000 / the user, and then we can just define any URL after that. So if we have the all users or anything after that, all users, so it will just contain as the localhost the port of the 5000 / user, as we have defined the user there in the app.js, and / the all user as well. So now this will work as this. So now we don't need to add the all user there. So then this route will be followed by this main route. After that we can just save, and now we need to just call this API. So now we don't have the front end, and now we need to call the API, and after that we need to just work with the post requests as well, with the delete requests as well. So how can we do that? So we can install the Postman, which is the API platform which is used to test the API. So we can just use the Postman with that. So we can just move on to the Chrome again, and then we can just search for the Postman. So we can have the Postman, and after that this is our API platform which is used for testing API. So you can see over 20 million developers use the Postman to test their APIs. So now we can just download the Postman. So you can just download according to your OS. So we have the Windows, so we can install for the Windows. So you just need to click next, and it will be then installed within very few moments. After that I have already installed the Postman, so I don't need to install that. So now we can just save everything, and then we can just open the Postman. So after installing the Postman, you can just open the Postman to create a new request to this API. So this is the screen of the Postman. This is a default screen, and after that you can just create another tab. So it works like a Chrome. So you can have here the tab, and then you can see you have the get method, and then you can just select any method from the drop down. And after that we need to add the request URL as well. So we can have the HTTP /localhost, the port of the 5000 /user. So this is the API. So now we need to work with this /user. So now if we now just click on the send and make sure this is a get request. So if we now just click on the send, so now we should see the status as the 200. So now you can see now we have the status as the 200, which is okay. and then you can see now we don't have any error, and then we don't have any users as well inside the database. So that's why it is giving us an empty error, because in the users controller it didn't find any user with that query or without any query, and it gives you an empty array if you don't have anything inside that. But now you can see now we have the response.status. So now our code is being done till this line as well. So if we have the code done till this line, so everything should work perfectly fine. So now we are able to get all of the users from the database. So now what we need to do as the next step, so the next step is we need to post the user to the database as well. So we need to create the users inside the database. So for that, so we need to post a new user to the database. So we can post a new user. So we can just move on to the user routes, and then we can just declare another route as the user router.post. So we can have the user router.post. This is a post request, and the post request will also work inside the controller function. So we need to just move on to the controllers, and then we need to define another function which is the post controller. So we can have the export const, and it can be add user, and it will be an async function again. So we have the async request, response, and the next as the parameters again. So now we need to get some data from the front end. So now inside this postman, now for the post request we need to send some data to this request, which will be just attached to the body of the data. So we need to attach the data to the body inside the raw and inside the JSON. So we need to just provide the JSON data to the body. So for that, now we need to get this body inside the backend as well. So for that, what we need to do is now we need to destructure some things from the request.body. So we send the request, the backend, and we send some body with that. So we need to add the request.body. So we can have the const. So we need to destructure something from the request.body. So the request.body. And now from the request.body, what we need to destructure? So we need to destructure the name, we need to destructure the email, and then we need to destructure the password as well. So we have the name, email, and the password. So now we are destructuring the name field, email field, and the password field from the request.body. And after that, we can just run some validation checks as well. Like if we don't have the name, or we have the name dot trim. If we trim the name, if we remove the white spaces, if that's an empty string, and if that's an empty string, so now we need to add another validation check for the email. If we don't have the email, or the email dot trim is again an empty string, and after that same for the password. Like if we don't have the password, or the password dot trim is equals to an empty string, then we need to just return the response dot status, and then we can just return the response dot status as the 422 as the unprocessable entity. If we don't have the valid data, then we send the response dot status as the 422, and then again we add the JSON as the message, the invalid data, invalid inputs. So now these are the validations. So if we don't have the name, if we don't have this validation checks, then we are just sending the response dot status as the 422, then we send the message as the invalid inputs. And after that, if we pass this validation check, then we can just create a new user. So now this is the type of the sign up request, so that should be the sign up only. So we need to add this sign up, because now this is the sign up request where user will be added to the database. So now what we need to do, so after we have passed this validation check, then we can just create a new user. So for creating the new user, first we need to again create a user, and then we can again have a try catch block. So we have the try catch, and if we get an error, we will just return to the next error. So we have the return to the next. After that we have so now we enter the try, and now we need to create another instance of the user model, as we have the user model and the schema. So we need to create another instance of that schema. So we can have the user will be equals to, we can have the new user. So we have the new user schema, and inside that now we need to add the document as the first parameter. So we can have a document, and then you can see now we have the name string, email string, and the password string with that. So we can just provide the name, email, and the password, all of the fields that we have got from the request.body. So we have the new user as the schema. After that we need to just save this user to the database. So now this will create an instance of the user, and then this user will contain a document of that new user, and after that we need to just save this document to the database. So we can have the user will be equals to again the user dot save. Now it will just save a new record to the user's collection. So we have the save function to save a collection to the user, to save a document inside the collection. After that, what we need to do is again we need to check the validation check, like if we don't have the user again, like if the user didn't save or if it is a falsy value, then we can just return response.status would be equals to the 500 or anything, and then we can send the JSON again as the unexpected error. We can have this return statement over there as well. And after that, what we can do, so if we have passed this validation check, then we need to send the return response.status and the 201 which is created. So the 201 means a created. After that, we can send a JSON, and in the JSON we can set the newly created user, as we have just created the new user. So we can just send the newly created user with the database. So now what we are doing here is now we are just getting things from the request.body, and after that we are checking some validation checks, and then if we don't have the validation checks, then we are returning the response.status as the 422 as the unprocessable entity. After that, we have the user, and then we are adding the users into the try catch block. We have the user, and then we have the user.save, and then we are returning it next as the error. And then if we don't have the user or the user is a falsy value, then we are sending the response.status as the 500. Then we have the message as the unexpected error occurred. And then if everything works fine, then we are sending a return the response.status as the 201 which is created. And now we need to just write this sign up function into the user routes again. So we have the post, and it can be a sign up. So user can sign up with this request. So again we can have the sign up request here. So we have the sign up. If we now just save, and if we now just move on to the application, now we can just create another request, and it should be the post. So it should be the post, and the URL is same, or it should be the sign up. After that, sign up, and inside that sign up, and after that now we need to send the data, as we have just destructured the data. We need to send the JSON. So inside that we can have the JSON and the objects. So we can have the name can be a Nikhil, my name. After that we can have the email. I can add my email as the nikhil@test.com, and then we can have the password as well. We can have the password. So we have the password as the 123456. Now this is the password. So we have the name as the Nikhil, we have the email as the nikhil@test.com, and then we have the password. So now we need to send the new request. If we now just click on the send, now you can see now we have the sending request, but now we didn't see anything after that request. So now we need to handle the errors as well. So now you can see now we got an error. So now what is the error? Like the unhandled promise rejection warning cannot destructure the property name of the request.body. So now what it is saying here to us, like it doesn't know that which type of data it contains. So it doesn't know if it contains the string or any JSON or any number format. So we need to tell our application that we will expect the data from the JSON inside our application. So to tell that, we can just move on to the app.js, and after that when we have defined the app, so we can just use the app.use. So we need to define a middleware function with that, and it would be equals to the express.json. So with that we are telling that this application will then only communicate with the JSON data. So this middleware is used for this. We have the app.use as the express.json. So we can just use the middleware before any middleware after that. Now we have the express.json, and now as we have just defined here the next as well inside that, then instead of this next as of now, so we can just return the console.log. If we get an error in the try catch, so we can just return the next. We can just return the console.log the error that we got. So we got the error, so we can just console.log the error. We can just do same for that as well. We can just return the console.log as the error. So we will use the next after the application, and after that what we can do is now we can just save, and then we can just move on to the app.js again, and inside that we can just send a new request. Now fingers crossed. So if we now just click on the send, now we got this empty object, but it should be the data. Now I think we have missed the await inside that. So now you can see, now when we are saving the user, so we have missed the await. So it's a database operation, so we should always add there the await, but this is a promise, so it will just resolve after a few moments. So after that, if we now just click on the get request, so if we just click on the get, if we just remove the sign up from there, so if we now just click on the send, and then you can see now we have the users inside the database. So now we have one user inside the database as the Nikhil, and the Nikhil@test.com. So we can just create another user with that. So as we have just used the await as well, so we can have again the sign up, and then after that we can just create another user as the James. So we can have the James, and again we have the James@test.com. We can have the James@test.com after that. If we now just click on the send, so now we should see the gems. So now you can see, now we got the data inside the response as well, because now we are awaiting for the user for the saving. So now everything is working perfectly fine, and now we are able to send the user to the database. So if you are again not sure that if it is being stored to the database, so we can just move on to database deployments. Then we can just move on to the browse collections. After you will click on the browse collection, there will be a collections of the user. Then you will see there will be a records inside the users as well. Now you can see we have 2 records with their data. So everything is working perfectly fine. So now before moving ahead, now we can see, now we are storing the passwords at same string as we are getting from the user. So this is not a good approach for storing the passwords into our application. So with that, now what we can do is, now we can just create an encrypted password to store inside the database, and then once we will just log in with the user, so then we will just decrypt that password, and then we will just compare that password. So now what I mean is, now we need to just store an encrypted or hashed password into the database instead of storing directly the string that we are getting from the front end. So what we can do for that, so now we need to install a package, and it is called bcrypt.js. So the bcrypt.js is used to encrypt and decrypt a password or any string. So we can have an npm install as a bcrypt.js. So the bcrypt.js will be then used. So it will be installed in very few moments. And now the bcrypt.js is now installed. And now what we can do, so we can just first import the bcrypt.js from here. So we can have import bcrypt from the bcrypt.js. So this is the default export, so we can use any name before that. And after that, what we can do is, now once we are just signing up the user, so once we are just signing up, so then as we can see we have the password. So after we have passed this validation check, now we can just have the const new password, and it will be equals to the bcrypt. So we have the bcrypt dot, we can have the hash sync. So we will just declare the hash sync for the password. So we will use here the bcrypt.hashSync. So we have the hashSync method which works synchronously. So it generates the hash for the given string. So we need to pass here the string. So we can just pass the string as the password. So now this is a string. So we have the hashSync for the password. So it will just create a hashed password for a database. So now what we can do is, now we can just move on to the password, and instead of storing password directly to the database, so we can have the password as the new password, or it can be a hashed password. So it should be the hashed password. So we need to just give the password as the hashed password. So now this is the way which we want to store. So we have the name, email, and for the password we will just store the hashed password. So it will just create a hash string. So if we now just start the server again with the npm start, so if we now just create another user for the database, so if we now just clear the user as the John, and then we have the John @test.com, and we have the same password. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see instead of getting the same string, the 1 2 3 4 5 6, and now you can see now we got the hash string. So this is the way which we want to store the password inside the database, and this is a very secure way instead of storing directly strings, because that password will be visible to any user or any employee which is working inside the backend. So now you should store the password always into the hash password as a developer. And now the password hashing is also completed, and now what we can do is, now we have just completed the routes of the get and the post. So now we can just create a route for the update and for the delete users as well. So how can we do that? So again, we can use here the user router. So we have the user router dot, we can have here the put request. So for the update we need to add the put. So for the put request we need to get the ID of the user as well. So we need to get the ID of the user into the parameters, and then after that ID we will just fetch the user from that ID, and then we will just update the user of that ID only. So how can we do that? So we can just extract here the string again, and then after this slash it should be the ID. So after the slash we need to write here a variable, or we can add a parameter inside the request URL. So with that we can add the variable as the colon slash the variable name. So we have the colon slash ID. So this is the ID which we want to get from the front end, like here after this sign up or after the default URL. So we will just add here the ID of the user, like any ID after that. So it will be stored in this ID. And after that we will just move over to the controllers, and we can just define another controller function for that. So we can have the export, we can have the const as the update user will be equals to again the async, the request, response, and the next as the parameters. So after defining that, now what we need to do, first we need to get the ID. So how can we get the ID? So if we have defined anything after that, like anything with that, so it will be stored inside the id. It will be stored inside this id. So we need to just get this id from the params url. So for that we have the request parameters with that. So how can we do that? So we can have the const id, but it will be available from the request.params. So we have the router parameters, so we have the params url, and inside that we have the variable as the id. So we need to get the id from that id. So so the request.params is an object which contains the information about the params url. After that we have the id variable, so we can get the id object as well inside the params. So this is how we can get the id from the url. And after that, now again we need to get the things, like we need to get all of the things from the request.body. So we need to get these things, so we can just copy that because we need the name, email and the password with that as well. So we can just copy that, and after that we can just paste this. So now we have the name, email and the password. So we have the request.body, and after that we have the response.status as the 422 if we have unprocessable data. And after that we have the id. So we have the function inside the mongoose in which we can just provide the id, and then we can just provide the data to update the record of that id. So how can we do that? So first again we will define the let user, and now what we will to do is now we can just have the try catch block again. So we have the try catch, and inside this catch we will have the error, and then we will just return the console log the error. And after that what we need to do is now we need to just define the user. So the user will be equals to the await. So we have the method inside the mongoose models. So we have the user dot find by id and update. So we have the method of the find by id and update, in which in the first parameter we need to provide the id, as we got the id from the url. So we need to get this id, and after that we need to pass the data. So we can have the data as the name, we can have the data as the email, and again we need to add the data as the password. So now these are the things which we want to send to the database again. So again we need to just store the hashed password again. So again we can just store the hashed password again. We can just copy that hashed password, and we can just save that hashed password there. So with the hashed password, and for the password we will just have the hashed password. So now what will it do? So it will just await for the user to find by id. So it will just find by id. So it will just find the user by its id, and then it will just update the user by these details. And then we can again check the validation checks, like if we don't have the user or user is a falsy value, and here we don't even need to use the save because it will automatically call the save function after the find by id and update. So inside the update it will automatically call the save, and inside that if we don't have the user, then we will just return the response dot status would be equals to the 500 dot json, and in the message that is something went wrong. And after that if everything is successful, now what we can do is now we can just have the response dot status would be equals to, we can send the 200, which is okay. After that we can send the json, it can be updated successfully. So we can have the message, we have the updated successfully. So if we now just save, and now we need to just export this function as well. So we have this function. So what are we doing here is now first we are getting the id from the request.params object, and then we are just destructuring all of the things again, and then we are just having some validations, and then we are hashing the password of the user. After that we are declaring the user equals to the await user.find by id and update. So it will just find by id, and it will just update the user. After that if we get an error, so we will just console.log the error, and if we don't have the user, then we are sending the status of the 500, but if the user is updated, then we are sending the status of the 200. So now into the user routes, now we need to call this function. So it should be the update user. So we have the update user. If we now just save, and now what we want to do is now we need to pass here the id, as we have just defined the id of this John. So we can just copy that id, and then we can just paste here, and inside that John we can just change the name as the John the Michael. So we have just changed the name. So now this should be a put request because this is a put request, and then we have the id, and then if we now just save again, we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we got the message as the updated successfully. So if we now just click on the get, if we get all of the users from the database, so if we just click on the send again, and then you can see now we have the John as the Michael. So now we have the John Michael inside that. So everything is working perfectly fine, and the update operation is also working perfectly fine. And now the last operation is now we need to work on the delete operations. So we have the user router, again. So we have the user router dot delete. So we can have the delete request, and again we need to delete the user from the id. So again we need to get the id again as we did in the put, and inside that delete we need to again write the controller function. So it can be the export const, it can be the delete user, will be equals to the async, and it should be the request response and the next again. And now again we need to get the id from the user. So as we have got the id from there, so we need to copy that again. We need to copy this id, and after that when we get the id, now we need to just call here the function of the mongoose. So we have the function as the find by id and remove. So we can just call that function to find by id, to find the user by its id, and then it will remove that record from the database. So how can we do that? So again we have the let user. So again we have the try catch block. With the try catch, if we get an error, then we will just return the console dot log the error, and after that inside the try we can have here the user will be equals to, again we have the await. So we have the user dot find by id and remove. So we have a function of the find by id and remove, and we can just call this function, and here we only need to provide that id. So we only need to provide that id because for deleting the user from the database we don't need any data, we only need the id. So after that we can again have the validation check, like if the user is a false value, then we can just have the same response message. So we have the something went wrong, and then if we pass this validation check, then we can have a return the response dot status would be equals to, we can have the response dot status of 200, and then we can add here the json which contain a message as the updated successfully, or we have deleted successfully. If we now just save, if we now just move on to the user routes again, if we now just call this function as the delete user, so we have the delete user. So if we now just save, if we now just click on the delete request, so if we now just click on the delete, and then we can just delete the user as the James, or we can just delete the user as the Nikhil. We just copy this id, and then we need to paste this id after the user. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we got the message as they deleted successfully. And if we now just get all of the users again, if we now remove that id, we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we got the James and the John Michael inside that. So everything is working perfectly fine. So now the CRUD operation of the user is complete, and now you can see now we are able to delete the users from the database. And now you can see now we don't have the hashed password for the James, so we can also delete that user as well because we don't need that user. So we can just copy again, then we can just paste the id here. So if we now just click on the send, so now you can see now we have the deleted successfully again, and if we remove the id again from there, and then you can see now we have only one user inside the database. So in the array we only have the one record inside the database as the John Michael, which contains the hashed password. So everything is working perfectly fine in our application. And now the next step is now we want to log in the user. So now we need to just work on the login route. So after we have the sign up route inside that, so now we have the update and the delete, and now we can just work on the login route as well. So how can we work on the login route? So we can just work with the login by declaring another route as the user router dot, it should be the post. It is a post type of request, and after that we need to just add the slash login. And now inside this login we will just compare the credentials of the user like email and the password, and if the password and the email is correct, then we want to just send the message as they successfully logged in. So for that this will be a front end route. So we can have the login again. So we need to just declare a login function again. So again we have the export const, it can be a login, it will again be a async function as the request response and the next as the parameters. And for the login again, now we need to get the data again from the user. So we need to get the data, like we need to get the name, email and the password from the request.body. So again we need to get all of this data. So we can have, we can copy that, and then we can just paste that into the login. And now for the login, now we don't need the name because the name will not be used, and then we can just remove the name from there. So now the validation will be only the email and the password, and now we have the email and the password, and now we need to check if the user is already available inside the database or not. So how can we do that? So again we can run here the try catch block, and there we can define the let existing user. So we have the let existing user, and inside the try catch, so there would be a catch, return the console dot log the error, And now inside the try, what we want to do is now we need to just find the user. So how can we do that? So we have the existing user will be equals to await. So we have the user dot find one. So we have the user dot find one, which will just find just one document with that, and the find one needs a query. So we need to just add here the query as well. So we need to just define the query as the object field. So we can have the query as the email. So we need to find the user from the email. So we have the email equals to the email. So we can just skip that part as well. So we have the email. So it will just find the user. It will just find one record from that email. And after getting that user, now we need to compare their passwords. So here again with the bcrypt.js, we have a compare method in which we can just compare that password and it returns a boolean. So we can have a const. We can just have here the compare or anything like is password correct. So it returns a boolean. So we can have the bcrypt dot compare sync. So again we will use a synchronous way. So we have the compare sync, and with that the first parameter is now we need to add here the string. So the string which we want to send is this string that we got from the front end. So we got this string at the password. So we have the password, and after that we need to compare it with the hash string. So the hash string is available with the existing user password. So we have the password field with the hash string. So we can have that password. So now this will just give you the boolean value. So now you can see this returns a boolean. So then we can just check if the password is correct or not. Like if the is password correct is false, then we can just return the response.status would be equals to the 400 as the unauthorized, and after that we can send the JSON message as the message, and it can be equals to the password incorrect. It should be the incorrect password. Now so now we have this validation check, and now if the password is also correct, now what we can do is now before that now we can just have some validation checks for the existing user as well. If we don't have the existing user, then we need to just return the response.status at the 404, and we need to send the JSON. It will contain the message again. Message. The message would be equals to like enable find user from ID, from this ID. Now if we don't have the existing user, and if we have the existing user, then we need to just compare the password, and if the password is also not correct, then we need to send the response.status at the 400 at the unauthorized. And after that, if we have passed all of the validation checks, we can have the response.status as the 200, and then we can have the JSON, and then we can have the message, and in the message we can have the login successful. So we have the login successful with that. If we now just save, if we now just move on to the application again, we can just click on the post, and then it should be the login. So now we have the email and the password in this as well. So we can just remove the name from there. After that, we can just click on the send. If the credentials are correct, I think we got an error. So we need to just call this function inside that user routes as well. So now we need to call that function here. So it should be the login function with that. So if we now just try again with that, if we now just click on the send, and I think we have one error with that. Like we have the response.status is not okay, the status spelling is incorrect. We need to work on the response.status. So we have the response.status should be the status. So if we now just save, if we now just again send a new request, we now just click on the send, and now you can see we got the message as the login successful. So now everything for the user is now completed, and now we are also able to log in, sign up, create a user, add a user, delete a user, and update a user. So now the user operations are completed, and now the next step is now we want to create a admin model and their controllers as well. So the admin will be able to create the movies inside a database. So let's start with the admin first. So what we can do is now we can just move on to the models, and then we create another model, like it can be the admin.js. So this file will be treated as a module, as a model of the mongoose, and here as well we can just define the schema. So we can have a const admin schema will be equals to, it will be new mongoose.schema. So we can have a mongoose, should be the mongoose dot schema, and here we need to remove this mongo import as well because we don't need that. It will be import mongoose from mongoose. And now we need to define some properties of the schema. So the properties will contain the email of the admin. So the email can be of the type, again it should be the string. And then we need to add a unique property as well to the true, because we need unique email for every admin inside our database. So most probably there will be only 1 or 2 admins, so we need the unique email addresses for them. So the unique will be equals to the true. And then we can just define the passwords for the admin as well. So it should be the admin password, and the password again will be of the type, it should be the string again. And then we need to define the minimum length. So the minimum length should be 6 again. And so now after the password we need to add another field inside the schema, and it should be the edit movies. It should be the edit movies, and the edit movies will be used. So whenever we will add a movie with this admin, with a specific admin, so we need to store the reference as well. So the edit movies will be equals to, it can be an array of the objects, because there will be probably 1 or 2 admins, so they will just add their movies. So we need to add the reference of which admin added which movie. So we can just have the type of the string for now, but it will be changed later when we will just define the relations between the collections, and the type is equals to the string. So we need just the type. And after that, this is the schema of this admin for now. And after that we need to just export the schema as well. So it should be the export, it should be the default export, and it should be the mongoose dot model. So we need to just export the model of the admin. So it should be the admin, and in the MongoDB collection it will be stored as the admins. So as we have defined inside the users as well, so it should be stored inside the users, and here the admin will be stored as the admins. And after that we need to define the schema. So we can just define the admin.schema. So after that we don't again need the mongoose, so we don't need them. So now this is the model of the admin. And after that what we can do is, now we can just define some routes for the admin as well. So we can just have here the admin dash routes.js, and inside that there will be some routes for the admins. And how can we do that? So there most probably there will be only 2 routes. So it should be only the post for the sign up, and then the post for the login. So we need only 2 routes there. So what we can do is, now we can just import the express from the express again. So now we need to import the express, and again we need to just define the router for the admin as well. So it should be the admin router, and it will be equals to again the express dot router. So now we need to give reference to the admin router. After that we can just have here the admin router dot, it should be the post, so it should be the sign up. So we have the sign up inside the admin, so it should be slash sign up. And after that what we can do is, now we can just define a controller function again. So again we need to move on to the controllers folder, create a new file as the admin dash controller.js. So there will be some functions to control the routing operations inside the admin. So now what we need to do is, now again we need to move on, and then we need to just create a function. So it can be export const as the add admin, and it should be equals to again a function which contains the request, response, and the next as the parameters. And then this will also be an asynchronous function, so we need to add the async before them. And after that we need to just declare this function. And now what we need from the user, from the front end, so we need the email and the password to store inside the admin. So we need to just destructure the properties of the email and the password. So we can just have the const, we need to destructure from the request.body again. So as we did inside the user, so here as well we need to destructure. So we need to destructure the email and the password. So these are the 2 fields which are required. So I think we have missed the required property here. So it should be the required will be equals to the true inside the model. So there as well the password will also be the required field. So it should be the required, and after that this will not be the required. And after that we can just move on to the admin controller again, and then we need to define the email and the password if we are just signing up. So now to store the admin first, now we need to check if the admin is already available inside the database. But how can we check that? So we can just declare a variable as the existing admin, and it will be equals to the undefined as of now. And then we can just have the try catch block, and in the try catch block we will just find that if we find the admin from that email, then we don't need to create a new admin from the same email. So we need to add this validation. So if we get an error, so we will just return the console.log the error. So we will just console.log, but inside the try, now we need to find if the admin is already available. But how can we do that? So we can just have here the existing admin will be equals to, it should be the await. And now we need to just reference again to the model. So we need to add the admin model and again the model will have a function of the find. So here we can use the find, but the find returns an array on the query. But how can we fetch only one record? So we have a function of the find one, which we can use to fetch a record. And there as well you can see we have the filter, we need to add the query. So we can just add here the query as the email. So the email will be added as the email colon email. So we can just add here the email, and after that if it will find a record, so we can just check some validation again. So if we don't have the existing admin, or if we have the existing admin, then what we can do is we can just return the response dot status will be equals to the 500, or it can be the 400 as the unauthorized, because the admin already exists. So we can just add here the JSON again. It should be the message. So the message will be equals to admin already exists. So this is the message for that. And after that, if we didn't find the admin, then what we can do is we can just check that. I think we need to define the new admin. So here, if we don't have the admin inside the database, then we need to define a new admin. So for that, what we can do is again we need to define here the admin. Let admin will be by default an empty value. And now before that, what we need to do again, so as we need to store the password inside the hashed format, so we need to just hash the password again, so as we did inside the users. So here as well we need to hash the password. So again we can have the const as the new password, or it can be the hashed password. So the hashed password will be equals to, again, we need to import the bcrypt again. So we need to import the bcrypt. So we need to go to the top, import the bcrypt from the bcrypt.js. So it should be the bcrypt.js, and after that hashed password will be equals to, again, the bcrypt dot hash sync. So we have a function as the hash sync which will synchronously hash the password, and then the first parameter is the string. So we need to define here the string for that. So the string will be equals to the password. So it will just store the hashed password with that, and again we need to add the try catch block to store the admin inside the database. So we can just have the try catch, and if we get an error, we will just return console.log the error, and after that we can just move on again to the try. So the try will be having a new admin, so it should be the admin will be equals to the new instance of the admin. So we have the new admin, and the new admin will contain some fields, like it will contain the email and the password, because these two are the required ones. And after that we need to store the admin as well, we need to save the admin as well. So it should be the admin will be equals to, we need to add the await because it's a database operation and it's an asynchronous task. So it should be the await, and it should be the admin dot save. So we need to call the save function from the admin model, and after that it will just save the record to the database. And we have missed the hashed password. So for the password we need to add the hashed password. So it should be the hashed password, and after that we need to check the validations as well. Like if we don't have the admin, then it should be the admin. Then what we can do is we can just return the response dot status would be equals to the 500 and dot json as the message, like the enable to store admin. After that, if we have passed this validation check, then what we can do is we can just return the response dot status would be equals to the 201, which is created, and then we can just send here the JSON again. So it should contain the message, or it should contain directly the admin that we want to send. It will be the admin only. So now this is what we have done. So first we have checked if the admin is already available, then we don't need to create the admin, and then we have some validation. Like, so suppose if we have the existing admin, then we don't need to create a new admin. So we have this validation check here as well, and then after that if we have passed this validation check, then we are storing a new admin, and then we have all of the properties. Like here we are just defining a new admin instance, and then we are saving that admin, and then we are checking if we are unable to save, or if there is an error while saving that admin. Then we are returning the response dot status at the 500, and we have the unable to store the admin. So after that we have the return as the response dot status at the 201. If we have passed all of the checks, then we are sending the admin to the user as well. And now we again need to move to admin routes, and here as well we need to define the admin. So it should be the add admin as the function. And now this is a new model, and we haven't created a reference inside the app.js, so we need to create a middleware for the admins as well. So what we can do again, so we can just move on, and then we can just define another middleware. So we can just have here the app.use, and it should be /admin. It will contain the admin routes, and here as well we need to just export this admin router as well. So we need to move on to the admin routes, and here we need to just export this admin routes. So we have the export default, it should be the admin router. So now we need to just save, and now we need to move on to the app.js again. We need to provide the reference of the admin router. So this is all what we need to do. So we need to define the middleware, and now the routes will work on the /admin/signup, and then the add admin function will then run. So now we can just move on to the postman. We can create another tab for the admins. So we can just have the same URL like this. So we can just copy that, and then we can just paste the URL here. And now instead of the user, so we can just remove the user. It should be the admin, and then it should be the sign up. So now we need to define the sign up, and inside the body we need to send the data as the raw, as the JSON. So the body will contain the data, like it will contain the email. Email should be like nikhil@test.com, and then we need to define the password. The password should be again we can have the string as the 123 ###. So this is the password as the nikhil@test.com, and we have the password as the 123 ###, and this will be a post request, not get. And now we have the same URL as the admin sign up. So now if we now just click on the send, if we now just test our application, and now you will see now the new admin is also created inside our application, and now you can see we have the ID of the new admin as well. And now you can see we have the edit movies, which is a blank array as of now. So we didn't store any edit movies, because after the admin will be logged in, then only we need to store the movies. So now the admin sign up has been completed, and now again we can move on to the login. So we can just define another router for the admin. So it should be the admin router dot post. So it should be the login. So now we need to define another controller function for the login as well. So we can just move on to this file, and then here we can just define a function. It can be the export const as the admin login, and it will be again an asynchronous function. It will contain request, response, and the next as the parameters. And after that, what we can do for the admin login, so first again we need to grab these properties. So here I think we didn't check the validations, like if the email is empty or if the password is empty. So we can just check some validations here. So we can just move on to the users controller, and there we have already defined that validation like this. So we need to just copy this validation from there, and now we can just move on to the admin controller once again. So this would be the validation then. So like if we don't have the email, or if the email.trim is an empty string, same for the password, then we need to send the response.status at the 422 as the JSON as the message of the invalid input. So we need to grab these two things again for the login admin. So here we can just define that, and now what we can do is now again we need to check that if we already have the admin. So how can we do that? So we can have the let existing admin again. So it will be the undefined as of now, and now again we can just have the try catch block. So we can just have the existing admin will be equals to await. It should be the admin dot find one once again. So again we need to just find one record, and after that we will find one record with the email. So we have provided that email, and now it will just find the record from that one. And after that, what we can do inside the catch, so we will just have the catch. If we will get the error, we will just return the log as the error. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to just check some validations. Like if we don't have the existing admin, then what we can do, and there we have checked that if we have the existing admin, but here we need to check that if we don't have the admin, then we need to return the response.status as the 400 as the unauthorized, and then we can just send the JSON again as the message. So it should be like the admin not found. And after that, what we can do is now we can just check if the password of the admin is same or not. So how can we do that? So again we need to do it with defining another validation checks, like where, like here we can just define the compare sync method from the bcrypt. So it will just compare the password from the given string and with the actual string. So here we can again have the const as the is password correct. It should be equals to again the bcrypt dot compare sync. So we have already used the compare sync inside that users controller. So here as well we will use the compare sync, and then the first parameter which we need to provide is the string. So we can just define this string as the password that we got from the user, and then we need to verify it with the hash string. So we can have the hash string with the existing admin dot password. We can reference to the password of the existing admin. So now what we need to do again, So now we need to check, like, if the is password correct is falsy value, then what we can do is we can just return the response dot status would be equals to 400 again as the unauthorized, and it can be as the JSON. So we can have the message as invalid or the wrong password or the incorrect password. So now we have the incorrect password, and after that what we can do is, now if the password is correct, then what we can do, we can just return the response dot status something like 200, which is okay. Then we can send the JSON message as well, which will contain the message. So the message will be equals to like the authentication complete. So this is the message which we want to send. So this is the final code for the login for the admin. So first we will just check if we have the existing admin or not. So if we have the admin, then we need to just check the passwords of that admin, like we need to compare their passwords. And after that, if the password is correct, then we need to just return the response.status as the 200. But if the password is not correct, then we need to return the response.status as the 400, and then we need to send the JSON as the incorrect password. So now what we need to do is, now we need to move on to the admin routes, and instead of the add admin, we need to just have here the admin login. So it should be the admin login. So if we now just save, if we now just move on to the login route instead of the sign up, so it should be the login, and then we can just define same body, and it should show us the login successful. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see we have the authentication as the complete. So we have completed that authentication. But if we now just change the password, now we can just add another one after this. We can have the another one after that. So if we now just click on the send, so now we should see the password is incorrect. So now you can see now we have the incorrect password inside that. Everything is working perfectly fine. So if we now click on send, now we have the authentication as the complete. So now the admin authentication is complete. And now what we need to do, so after the admin authentication is complete, now we need to just create a token for the admin for the authorization. So for the normal user, the authorization will not be necessary, but for the admin, the authorization is necessary. So for the authorization, we will use a token. So we will give the token to the user, and then we will verify that token, and then only the admin will be able to create the movies. So with that, now we can just try that. So what we can do, so we can just move on to the admin login, and then we can just define here something like, after the password is correct, then we can just define the token, and then we need to verify that token as well. So what it will do, so we will just encrypt something into the token, and then we will just decrypt something from the token, and then we will just verify if the encryption and the decryption is same. If we have encrypted the ID of the user, and if the ID when we decrypt is the same, then the authorization will be complete. Then we will add the movies. So how can we do that? So first what we can do is, now we can just install a package as the JSON web token. So how can we do that? So we need to move on to the Chrome, and then we need to just move on to a browser. So we can just search for the JSON web token. So then you can see now we have the JSON web token. So it's a token which will just encrypt something inside that. It can be a string, it can be an object or a buffer or anything. We just sign a token. So with the encryption, we need to just sign some token, and then we need to provide the payload. The payload will be created with that. So the payload contains some data like string or any data or the object or anything. And after that, we provided the secret key. So we need to provide the secret key which will just encrypt and decrypt. So this is the private key which will encrypt the data, and the same key will decrypt the data as well. After that, we have some options and the callback variables as well. And this is a asynchronous as well. We can use the synchronous way and the asynchronous as well. So what we will do, so when the admin will be logged in, then we need to create a token as the JSON web token, and then is we will just authorize the user for some time, like even for 1 day or 2 days or just 1 hour. So we will just give the time to add the movies. So after 1 day or a 1 hour or after any time span, so the token will be expired. So after the token is expired, then we will not be able to create the movies. So then the admin will not be able to create the movies. So we need to just define the JSON web token for that. So what we can do is, now we can just copy that, and then we need to just install the JSON web token in our application. So we can have the npm install as the JSON web token to create the tokens for the admin. And it's a completely secure way for securing our application. And I have already created a course of the MERN stack with the authorization and authentication. So you can buy that course on the Udemy as well. So now what we need to do is, now first we need to again restart the server. So we can have the npm start. And now what we can do is, now we can just import the JSON web token. We need to import the JSON web token. or we can import the JWT from, so we need to import from the JSON web token. So now we have the JWT, and now what we need to do, so like when the user will be logged in, so if the password is correct, after that what we can do is now we can just declare the token. So we can have the const token will be equals to, it should be the JWT. So we have the JWT dot, so we will use here the sign. So we have the sign function in the JWT, which will just synchronously sign the payload into a token. And the payload, we can just define the payload to the string, an object, or a buffer as we have defined earlier. It will just encrypt the data inside it, and after that then we will just authorize the user as well. So once we will create the movies, so we will just authorize that user as well with the JWT. And after that what we can do is now we can just provide here some payloads. So we can just provide the payload, so it should be the email, or we can just have here the ID. So we can just provide the ID of that admin. So we can have the ID from the existing admin dot underscore ID. So the MongoDB provides us the ID inside the underscore, so we need to provide the answer underscore ID, encrypt this ID inside that. And after that we can also encrypt that email as well, but the ID would be more preferable. And after that what we need to do is now we need to provide the secret key, and the secret key, and make sure the secret key is not being shared with anyone, but you need to secure your secret key, because if anyone will have your secret key, then he or she will decrypt your data and it will just store your credentials. So you need to just store the secret key privately. So how can we do that? So again we can just move on to the env variables, and then we can just define the secret key as well. So we can have the secret key, so we can have the secret key, and the secret key will be equals to, we can have the secret key as any secret like my secret. So you can have the secret key as any key, but here we can only have the my secret. And now what we can do is now we can move on to the admin controller, and after we have just given the payload as the ID, so we can just provide the secret key. So again we can have the process dot environment dot, we have the secret key. So I think we have this name, so we can have the secret key after that. So we have the process dot environment dot secret key, and after that we have some options object. So we need to check the options object. So there are some things like they are the algorithm, we can have the HS256, HS384, and RS512, which is very good algorithm. And after that we have some encoding, we have some expires in, and the expires in property is very important. So we need to define the expires in. So the expires in property contains so many things, like after how much time span the token should be expired. So this property defines that, like after how many time span this token would be expired. So we can have this 60 as the number of seconds, we can have 2 days, we can have 10 hours, we can have 7 days. So here we can use any number of hours. So if you will just provide the number, then it will be counted in the milliseconds. So there you can just have 1 day or anything, like I will just define here for the 1 day. So we can have the 1D. So now the token is now provided. So now we can just move it for the 7 days as well. So now we have the expires in property for the 7 days. So till the 7 days the token for that admin will be valid, but after the 7 days the admin token will not be valid, and he or she will not be able to create the movies. So the admin will not be able to create the movies inside the database. So now let's start with that. So now once we are sending a JSON message as the authentication complete, then we can also send here the token. So we can just send here the token, and the token should be like the admin token. There will be the admin token. After that what we can do is now we can also provide the ID as well for that. So we can have the ID, and the ID of the user which is currently logged in, like the ID of the admin which is currently logged in. So we can have the ID of the existing admin dot underscore ID again. So we can have the existing admin dot underscore ID. So these are the things in which we need to decode everything. And now what we can do is now we can just check if we got the token. So we can just move on, and then we can just log in again. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see after we got the message as the authentication complete, we got the token as well. So this is a token which contains it is an encrypted data inside that, and it is very impossible to decode that data as well. So this is very impossible. And after that we are giving the ID as well of the admin which is currently logged in. So we need all three things with that. So now what we need to do, so now the admin part has been also done. So now we have created the admin part as well. So now we have created the post requests for the admin part. So we have the post for the sign up and the post for the login. So now the admin is almost complete again. And now what we need to do is now we need to create the movies. So now we need to create the models for the movies as well. So we can have the movies, or we can have the movie.js. So it should be the new model of the movie. So here also we need to define the schema of the movie. So we can have the const, it can be the movie schema. and it will be equals to again the new mongoose.schema. So we need to refer to the mongoose.schema class. So the movie will contain some fields, like it will contain the title of the movie. So we can have the title, we can have the type. So the type should be equals to the string, and then we can have the required property again. So the required will be equals to the true. Then we can just copy that for some of the for more fields as well. So like it should contain the description as well of the movie. So we can have the description. After the description, now what we need to do is now we need to just define the release date of the movie as well. So we can have here the release date. So the release date would be equals to again the type should be equals to the date, and then the required should be equals to the true. So it will be having the type of the date. So now we have the date types as well inside the JavaScript. So we can have the release date as the type equals to the date. After that, we again need a URL of the poster. So we can have here the poster URL. So the type would be equals to the string of the poster URL, and then we can also add here another text, like it can be the admin or it can be the feature. So feature can be equals to, we can have the type of the boolean. If we have the feature, then only we need to add here the type. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to add here the bookings as well. For that, we will create the bookings model and the controllers and the routes later, but here we will only have the bookings. So the bookings of that movie will be stored inside an array. So we can just define here an array which will contain the type of the string as of now. So as of now, we are just declaring the type as the string, and then it will also be a required, or we can just skip that required part. After that, what we can do is now we can just define another field, and it should be, I think, the admin. So which admin has created this movie? So we can have that property as well for the admin. For the admin, we can have would be equals to the string, and this would be a required field because an admin only can create a movie. So we can have the required would be equals to the true. So these are the fields for the schema. So now we have the title, we have the description, we have the release date, we have the poster URL, and all of these four are required. But we have the featured, which is not required as of now. Then we have the bookings, which will be an array, like it will be having the bookings of that movie. So we will have the bookings of this movie, of that specific movie object. And after that, we have the admin, which will have the type of the string as of now, and it is the required prop as well. So now what we need to do is now we need to just export this as well. So we need to export mongoose.model. So it should be exported as a model again. So it should be the movie. And after that, what we can do is now we can just define here the movie schema. So it should be the movie schema. So this will be that. So it should be the export default. So I think we have missed the default. So it should be the export default as the mongoose.model. It will be the movie and the movie schema. Everything is working perfectly fine as of now. And now what we can do is now we can just declare the routes for that movies as well. So we can have the movie dash routes.js. And inside that, what we need to do is now again we need to import the express from the express. And here what we need to do, so we can just define the router. So it should be the movie router, and it will be equals to the express dot router. So we can have the express dot router with that. And after that, what we need to do is first we can just have here the post request for that movie. So we can just have here the movie router dot post. Inside that post, now what we need to do, so we need to define the URL. So the URL will be the same. After that, what we need to do is now we need to call the controller function. So again, we can move on to the controllers. We can define new controller file. So it should be the movie dash controllers.js. After that, here we need to define the controllers. So we can have the first controller function as the add movie. So we can have the export const as the add movie. It should be equals to an object. So it will be equals to an async function. And after that, what we need to do is first we need to just validate the token as well. In the movies, we need to validate the token. So now our application is getting complex. So now what we need to do inside the movie controller, so in the add movie, we need to just first verify the token. And how can we verify that token? So we need to verify that token from the headers. So we will send that token from the headers. So first we will get that token after the login. So when the admin will be logged in, so it will just send the token to the movies. So we will verify that if the token is now still valid, then only we'll be able to create the movie. So how can we do that? So in the token, we will just send that token inside the headers. So we have the headers object here as well. And in the headers, we have the authorization as well. and with the authorization we will send the bearer token. So we send the authorization token, so this will be our authorization token, and we will send the authorization with the bearer token. So we have the bearer token inside the APIs, so we can send that token. So how can we do that? But how can we extract the token? So here we can just define const token, or it can be extracted token, and it will be equals to again the request. So we need to just accept the parameters as the request, response, and the next. So now we need to just extract the token from the request dot headers dot authorization. So we will just send here the authorization token. So we will just have here the authorization. It should be the authorization, and make sure the spelling of that authorization and here as well should be same. So we will just send the authorization token, but when we will just send the token, then it will be stored as the bearer token. It will send the token as the bearer dash token. So it can be any token after the bearer. So we can just check some validation, like if we don't have the extracted token, or if the token is an empty string. So we have the token, so we have the extracted token dot trim, so it will be equals to an empty string. So what we need to do is we need to just return the response dot status at the 4 of 4 and JSON as the token. The message will contain the token not found. So the token will not found. So if we don't have the token, then we need to send the response dot status as the 4 of 4, and we need to send the JSON as the message which will contain the token not found. And now what we need to do is, now for now we will just log that token. So we will just log as the token if we get the token. So we need to log the extracted token as of now. If we now just save, if we now just move on to the movie routes, and here we will use the add movie. So we have the add movie with that. So now what we need to do is, now we need to move on to the app.js again. We need to define another middleware for the movies. So we can have another middleware. So it should be the app.use, it should be the movie, and it should be the movie router. So I think we need to export that movie router. So it should be the export default, it should be the movie router. After that we need to use it inside the app.js, so it should be the movie router. If we now just save, if we now just move on to the application, we can create another tab. After that what we need to do is, now we need to grab the URL. So we can just get this URL, and we have this, don't have the admin, so it should be the movie. And after that what we need to do, so once we are logged in, so here we are already logged in and the token is valid for the 7 days. So what we can do is, now we can just copy that token. So we need to copy this token from there, and now we need to copy that, and now we need to paste that token inside the headers. So we have the headers, we have the authorization, so we need to paste this token inside the authorization slash bearer token. So we can just have the token here. So you can see we have the token field, so we need to add the token. So here we need to add the token and make sure the token is correct, because if the token will be incorrect, then it will give you an error. After that what we can do is, now we can just select the method as the post, and then we can just send that if we got the message as the token. So we can just click on the send, and now you can see in the console window, now you can see now we got the token. So now you can see now we have the token which will just have connected to database, and after that we have the token. And now you can see as we are sending the bearer token, so we have here the bearer and dash token. So what we can do, so we can just extract the token from that given string, and then we will just verify that token. So now let's start with the verification of the token. So we can just cancel this request as of now, and then we can just move on to the movie controller, and then we can just verify that token. And now what we need to do is, now we got the token as the bearer dash token. So what we need to do is, now we can just split that empty space between them, and then it will just convert it into an array. The first element of that array will be the bearer, and the second element will be the token. So we can just have the authorization dot split. So it will be split it into a empty space, and after that we need to just get the first value of that. So we need to get the second position from that array, so it will just give you that token. And after that the approach would be that how we can extract the data and how we'll verify that token. So first we will just define here the admin ID. So we will just extract the token from the admin ID. So what can we do is, now we will just declare the variable as the admin ID, and then we will just extract that token. And if the token extraction will be successful, then we will just decrypt that token, and then we will just get the ID from that token. We will just define here an admin ID. So we can just define a variable as the admin ID. So it should be empty as of now. Is we will verify that token So as we got here the token, we will verify that token, and after that, if we will verify that token completely as successfully, then we will just destructure that token, or we will decrypt that token, and then we will find that admin ID from that token. So we will get that admin ID as the string inside that token, and then we will just store that admin ID inside the admin field inside the movie schema. So we can just do with that, like here we can just verify that token first. So here we can have verify token, and after that we need to just create a new movie. So in the verify tokens, we need to verify the token. So how can we verify that token? So we can verify the token with a JWT. So again, we need to import the JWT. So we need to import JWT from the JSON web token, and after that we have the function inside the JWT, and the function is the verify. So we need to verify. So we have the JWT.verify. So the verify contains, so the verify method contains 3 arguments. So it should be the token, the string, and then we need to provide the token. So we can just provide here the extracted token that we have extracted. Then what we need to do is, now we need to just define the secret key again. So as we have defined the secret key inside the encryption, so we need to provide same secret key for the decryption for that. So it will just decrypt that token with the same secret key. So again, we need to provide a secret key as the process.env dot the secret key. So we had the secret key with that. So I think we had the secret key. So we can just copy that, and then we can just paste that here. So it should be the secret key. And after that, after we provide the secret key, then we will just have the callback function. So we have the complete as the true. So we will just get the callback function, and in the callback there are 2 parameters as the error, and it will have the callback parameter as the decrypted, or it should be the complete. So it should be decrypted. So if we got an error, so we will just log that error, or we will just return something with that error. But if we got that decrypted, so we will just get the ID of that user that we have encrypted in the decrypted format. So we need to just call there the callback as well. So we will just call the callback here only. So after that, what we will do, so we will just check if we got the error. Then what we will do is we will just return the response dot status would be equals to something around 400, and then we will send the JSON message as well. So it will contain the message. So the message will be equals to, we can have the same message as we got inside the error. So we can have inside the template literals. So it should be the error dot message. So we have the message property inside that, inside the error. If we get an error, then we need to do this. But else, when we didn't get the error, then it means that we have successfully decrypted that token. If we have decrypted that token, then we will get the ID inside the decrypted object as well. So we will just store that admin ID inside the admin ID variable. So the admin ID will be equals to decrypted dot the ID of the decrypted. So we have encrypted the ID inside the admin controller. So after we are logged in, so we have encrypted the ID field. So now we will just decrypt that ID from that as the decrypted.id. So we will just pass here the ID field with that decrypted. After that, if the verification is successful, then we need to return only. So now we don't need to return anything. Then we need to return only from this callback function. After that, what we need to do, if the verification is successful, so this will just have here the verification as is successful. After we have verified the token, then we can just create a new movie. So now for creating the new movie, now again we need to destructure some fields from the front end. So we will send all of the fields from that movie file. So in the movie.js, we need all of these fields. So what can we do is, now again we need to destructure all of the things from the request.body. We can have the request.body. So here we need to destructure the title field, we need to destructure the description field, and we need to destructure the release date. Then we need to destructure poster URL, so it should be the poster URL. And after that, we need to destructure the, it should be the featured, and the bookings and the admin. So it should be the featured. So these are the things which we need from the front end, as the title, description, release date, poster URL, and the featured. So we have all these with that. So we have the title, description, release date, poster URL, featured, and we have the bookings area that will not be required as of now. And now we will destructure all of these things from the request.body. And now we again need to just verify all of the things. So we need to just have some validation checks again, like if we don't have the title or if we don't have the description, so we can just provide these validation checks. Then again we need to pass here the description. For the description, like if you don't have the description, after that the same for the release date, and the release date would be inside the date format and not inside the string. So it should be inside date. So I will now remove that validation from the release date. Now we will just provide the validation for the poster URLs. We don't have the poster URL, and the poster URL dot trim should be equals to an empty string. Then we will just provide the error, and we don't need to provide for the featured. So then we will just return the response dot status for be equals to the 422 dot JSON message, which will contain as the message as the invalid inputs. After that, what we need to do after this validation, now we need to create a new movie. So we can again have the let movie, and now we need to create a new movie, so we can have the try. So we will have the try catch block again. We can have the try, we can have the catch as well. So if we get an error, we will just return console dot log the error. So now we have the try catch block, and inside the try, now what we need to do, now we need to define a new instance of that movie as well. So how can we do that? So we can have the movie will be equals to the new movie. So we have the new movie, and then we need to define the fields for the new movie as well. Like we have the title, we have the description, and then we need to add the release date, and then we need to add here the featured as well. So it should be the featured, and then we need to provide here the admin, and the admin would be equals to the newly created admin. So for the admin, we need to provide here the admin ID. So we need to just only store the ID of that admin. And now for the date as well, we need to define here the new date. So how can we do that? So the release date will be equals to, so we can have the new date. So the new date will be equals to the string which will contain the release date. So it will just convert the date into the date format. So we'll have here the release date with that. And the title, I think, is the title. And after that, I think we have missed another field inside the movie. So we didn't have the actors inside the movie. So we should also have the actors. So after the title and the description, so we'll just have here the actors. So we can have here the actors, and it will be an array of the strings. So we can have the array of the strings as the array of the type would be equals to the string, and the required will also be the true. So the required will be true. So we have the array which will have the type of the string, and the required is equals to the true. So we have these properties for the actors, and then we can move on to the movies controller, and here we can also extract the property of the actors. So we can have the actors, and then we need to just add the actors as well. So it will be the actors. So now these are the things which we need to provide. So we have the actors, we have the title, description, release date, featured, actors, and the admin. And in the admin, we are storing the admin ID. And now what we need to do is, now we need to just save that as well. So we can have here the movie will be equals to the movie dot save. So we need to call the save function with that movie. It will just save the newly created record inside the movie. Now what we need to do is, now we need to just check like if the movie is unsuccessful. If the movie is a false value, then we need to return the response dot status would be equals to, we can have the status at the 500, and we can add there the JSON which will contain the message. It will have the message as the request failed. And after that, if we have passed that validation check, then we can just send the return response dot status would be equals to, we can have the response dot status of the 2 or 1, and then we can send here the JSON message as well again. So it should be the message. So the message will be like have the successfully created the movie, like movie edit, or we can just send the newly created movie as well. So we will send here the movie. So now it should be the await as well, because it is a save function. It will be an asynchronous task, so we need to wait for it as well. So now this is a new movie as of now, and after that, after we will define all of the things. So then after we will just define the relations. So we need to modify the code for the movie controllers as well. So for now it will be just the same code. And now what we can do is, now we can just save, and then we can just move on to the movie routes, and then we need to define that route as the add movie with that. If we now save, if we now just move on to the postman again, if we now just create a new movie, so we can just have here the body, and inside that we need to add the raw JSON file. So we have the JSON again. So it should contain all of the fields, like it will contain the title. The title will be equals to like a new movie. Then we need to add a description. Description will be like, it will be just like new released movie. and then we need to add the actors. So we add the actors. Actors will be the array, so we will have the array of the strings. So we will have here the srk, we will just have here the ak, and after that what we need to do is now we need to add release date. So the release date will be in that date format, so we need to add it inside the date. So we can just have here the date would be equals to, we need to add the date as the first, it would contain the year, so it should be the 2022, and after that it will contain like July, so we can have here the 07 as the month, and then we need to add the date, so it will contain in the YYYY, and the DD format, so it should be like 29. So we can have this release date, and after that we need to add the poster URL as well. So we'll have the poster URL, so it will also be an empty string as of now, or it can be the sample. And after that what we need to do is now we need to provide the featured as well. Featured would be equals to the true, it's a boolean value. So if we now just click on the send, I think we got an error. So the error would be, we can just check the error here. So now we have the movie validation failed. I think we have missed some things with that, so we can just move on to the movie controller again, and here we can just check if we are giving every other field to that new movie, as we are just defining the title. So it should be description, release date, so we didn't add the poster URL, after that what we need to define, so we have the title. I think we have missed the property of the title, so it should be the title. So inside the movie as well it will be the title. After that we can move on to the movie controller, and now we have the title with that. So if we now just again create a new request, if we now just click on the send, so now you can see the new movie has been created, and now you can see the newly created movie object. So now we have the title as the new movie, we have the description as the newly released movie, and then we have the actors array as well, and then we have the release dates as well of that movie. Now you can see we have the 29 July 2022, and then we have the poster URL as well, we have the featured as well, we have the bookings as well. So for now we don't have any bookings, and now you can see now we got the admin as well. So now we can just check that which admin has created this user. So we can just move on to that admin, and then you can see this admin which ends with the 228 has created this movie. So now you can see we have the same admin with that, and now we have successfully destructured the tokens as well. And now you can see if it didn't provide the authorization token, or if the authorization token is wrong. So in the end we have the Y. If we just change it to the Z, if we now just click again on the send, and now you can see we have the invalid signature. So now we can see we have the invalid signature of the token. So if we have the token as the wrong, so it will not work. So now we need to only provide the correct token. So if we now just click on the send again, and now if the body would be like new movie again, and if we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we have the new movie again, and now everything is working perfectly fine, and now the token validation is also working perfectly fine. So this is how we can just verify the tokens, and we can just do another task after verification. So now we have completed the movies, and now we need to just define a new request for that movie as well. So we can just move on to the movie routes, and then we can also declare a get request as well for the movies to get all of the movies from the database. So we can have here the movie router, we can have here the .get request, and then what we can do, so we can just have here the get movies, and then we will just declare the get movies inside the movies controller. So the get requests, we don't need to just verify the JWT, because we only need to verify JWT when we are adding a new movie. Now we can just start with the get movies. So we can have here the export constantly get all movies, and it will be equals to an object which will contain the request, response, and the next as the parameters, and it will also be an asynchronous task, so it should be the async. And after that what we can do is now we can just have the let movies. So movies will now be an undefined value. Then we can just have the try catch block once again. We can have a try catch. So if we get an error, we will just return console.log the error. Now we can just have some code inside the try. So in the try we will just define the movies, like the movies will be equals to await, so it should be the movies dot find. So it will just find all of the movies from that collection, so it should be the find inside the movie. So the find runs on a query, so if we don't provide any query, so it will just find all of the records from that movies. And after that we can just have some validation, like if we don't have the movies, like if the movies is a falsy value, then we can just return response.status as the 500, and then we can send the JSON message as well, contain the message request failed. And after that what we need to do is now we need to just send all of the movies if we have passed the validation check. So we can just send the return the response.status would be equals to the 200, which is okay. Then we can send here the JSON message which will contain the message, and the message we cannot send the message, we can just send here the movies only. So we have the movies. So now we need to just move on again to the movie routes, and then we need to import the get movies as well as the get all movies. And now what we can do is now we can just create a get request as well. So we can just move on with the get, and then the path would be same as well again. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we got all of the movies with that. So we got the arrays of the object of the movies. So we have this movie first as the new movie, and then we have the new movie again in the second object. So everything is working perfectly fine. So now we have completed the movie part as well. So now we need to create another movie route. So it should be the get the movie by its ID. So we have missed that route. So what we can do is now we can just provide another movie router. We can just provide another get request. So it should be /id. So it should be /id of that movie, and then it should be the new controller function. So we can define the controller function as port. It should be the const. It should be the get movie by ID. So it will be again an asynchronous function, and it will contain the request, response, and the next as the parameters. And now what we need to do is now again we need to extract that ID first. So we can have the const ID will be equals to again the request dot params object as we did inside the users. So request dot params dot ID. It will just give you the ID because it works on the request dot params URL, and here we have already declared the ID. Like here we have declared the ID variable with that, so it will just get the ID from the params object. And after that what we need to do is now we need to just define the let movie, and again we need to work in the try catch block. So it should be equals to the movie will be equals to the await. It should be the movie. So we need to work on the movie dot find by ID. So we'll just find the record by the ID. So we need to work with this function. So we have the find by ID, and here we only need to pass here the ID. So we pass here the ID, so it will automatically detect the movie by its ID. And after that we can have the catch block once again, and if we get an error we will just return the console.log the error. And after that what we can do is now we can just check some validation, like if we don't have the movie, then what we can do, we can just return the response.status as the 404 and JSON which will contain the message as an invalid movie ID. After that if we have passed that validation check, then we can return the response.status would be equals to, we can have the status of the 200, and then we can just send the movie inside the JSON. So we can just send here the movie. So now this is how can we do it. Now we can just move on to the movie routes. Here instead of get all movies, it should be the get movie by ID. So if we now save, if we now just move on to the application, like now you can see now we have two movies. So if we want the second movie, like new movie again, if we want this movie from there, now after the movie then we need to add URL. So if we now just click on the send, now you can see now we got this movie only. So now you can see this is also working perfectly fine, and now we have able to create a get movie by ID function as well. So everything is working perfectly fine, and now the movies part has also been completed. And now the next part is now we need to create the bookings. So how can we do that? So we can just create another model as the bookings, and the bookings will contain some fields, like it will contain the movie. So in the bookings object, so in the bookings model we need to create a booking schema. So the schema will contain a movie, like which movie the booking has been done, and then the date of the booking, and then the seat number, and then the user. So we need 4 fields inside the bookings. So what we can do is now we can just move on to the model. We can just have the bookings.js. After that what we need to do is now we need to import the mongoose from the mongoose, and after that we need to create the schema of the bookings. We can have the const booking schema. We can have here the booking schema, and it will be equals to a new mongoose.schema. So we can have the mongoose.schema class, And after that we need to create new instance of the schema, and there we will just have here the movie. So we can just provide here the movie. So here we need to provide here the ID of that movie, but for now we can just define the type at the string, because we didn't add the relations as of now. But after we will be completing with the bookings, so we will just relate all of these collections together. Then we can just provide the type equals to the string, and it will be required would be equals to the true. So we have these fields, and after that what we need to do is we can just have here the date. So we can just have here the type would be equals to the date, and then we need to add here the required again. So we can have the required would be equals to the true, and after that we need to add the seat number as well. So we have the seat number, so we will just provide any seat number with that. So we can have the type would be equals to the number, and then we can just have the required would be equals to the true. After that what we need to do is now we need to just provide for the user. So we have the user, and then we need to provide any user. For now it will be the type of the string only. We can have the type would be equals to the string, and then we need to provide the required would also be the true, because we need all of the things for a new booking. So if we create a booking of a movie, so we need to add the movie name, which would be the movie, and then we have the date of the booking, and then we have the seat number, and then we have the user. These are the things which you need for the booking, and then we can just export that model as well. So we have the export default, it should be the mongoose.model. Now in the mongoose.model we need to export the booking. We can have the booking, and then for the schema we have the booking schema. So in the collections it will be stored as the bookings, as we have discussed earlier. So mongoose converts the name into the plural form. After that what we can do, we can just provide some controller functions and the routings for the bookings as well. So for that we can just move on to the routes. We can just create another route, booking routes.js, and here we can just provide here import the express from the express. After that we need to provide the const as the booking router. So it should be equals to the express.router, and here after that what we need to do, so we can have a new request of the booking. So we have the bookings router dot, we can have the post. So it should be the post request, and it will contain the URL of slash, and then it will be a new booking. And after that what we can do is now we can just define a controller function of the booking. So we can just move on to the controllers. We can have here the booking controller, and there we can just define a function. So we can have the export const as the new booking, and it will be again an asynchronous function, and it will contain the request response at the next as the parameters. And after that what we need to do is now we need to just define a new booking. So how can we define a new booking? So we need all of the fields from the front end. So we need the movie, so we need the date from the front end, and then we need to have the seat number as well. Then we need to add the user as well. So we need all of these fields from the request.body. So we can just get from the request.body. So we only have these fields inside the booking. So we have the movie, date, seat number, and the user. After that now we need to just define a new booking. So we can have the let new booking will be equals to, we can have here the undefined value as of now. So it should be the undefined, and after that we can work with the try catch again. So we can have the try catch, and inside that catch if we get an error, so we will just return the console dot log the error. After that what we can do inside the try, so we can just create a new booking. So we can just have here the new booking will be equals to, so we have the new booking will be equals to a new booking. So we have the new bookings. So after that what we can do inside that, so in the new bookings now we need to provide here the movie. So we have the movie, we have the date, and the date would be equals to a new date. So we need to convert the date inside the date format. So we can have here the date, and after that what we can do is now we can just define another field as the seat number, and then we need to provide the user. So we need to provide all of these fields with that. And after that what we can do is now we can just save that record inside the database. So we can have the new booking would be equals to the await, it should be the new booking dot save. So we need to call the save function to save that inside the database. And now what we can do is now we can just check validation checks, like if the new booking is a falsy value, then we can just return the response dot status would be equals to the 500, and then we can send here the JSON message again. So it should be the message as the enable to create a booking. And after that, if we have passed all of these validation checks, then what we can do is now we can just return the response.status as the 201, which is created, and then we can send here the JSON message as well. So it should be the new booking that we want to send. So the booking, it should be the new booking. We need to send here the new booking with that. So now this will be the function for the new booking. So here we are just defining the new bookings at the movie, date, seat number, and the user. Then we are defining a new booking, and then we have the new instance of the bookings, and then we have the date as the date, and then we have the seat number, user, and the movie. And after that, we are checking that if the new booking is a falsy value, then we are sending a status at the 500. But if everything is successful, then we are sending a response.status as the 201, and we are sending a JSON as the booking as the new booking. So now we need to work with the new booking here as well. So we need to provide the new booking. I think the new booking is same here as well. So it should be the booking only, because the new booking and the function name was also same. So we should have here the booking only. Here as well we have the booking. So now if we now just save, if we now just move on to the booking routes again, and here the new booking will be there. After that, we can just move on to the app.js to declare that inside the middlewares we can have the app.use. It should be /bookings. It would be the booking router. So I think we need to export the booking router as well. So we can just have here the export default as the booking router. So we have the bookings router. So now we can just move on again to the app.js, and then we can just save that here. We can have here the bookings router. If we now just save, if we now just move on to the Postman again, we can create a new tab, and here what we can do is now we can just create a new booking. So here we can just define a URL. So it should be the localhost 5000 dash it should be the booking, and it would be a post request as well. So we can add here the body. So we can have the raw, and then we need to add here the JSON. After that, what we need to do is now we can just send here the new booking. So we have the movie. So the movie would be any movie like new movie. And after that, what we need to do is now we need to work with the user. So the user would be like any user, and it can be any. So after that, it would be the seat number. So we can have the seat number as the numeric value, like it can be 28. And after that, we can just add here the date as well. So we should be the date. The date would be again equals to, we can have the date as the, it can be 2022-08-01. So the 1 August 2022. So if we now just click on the send, so now we should see the newly created booking. And now you can see, now we got the newly created booking in which the movie is a new movie. We have the date of this date as the 1 August, and then we have the seat number as the 28, and then we got the user as the any. So everything is working perfectly fine, and now we are able to create a new booking as well. So now we have completed the whole application for the API, but without the relations. So now we have completed the admin collections. We are storing the admin, and then we are storing the bookings, we are storing the movies, and then we are storing the users as well. So everything is working perfectly fine, and now we are able to create the new admin. We are able to create the sign up and the login, and then we are able to create the new bookings. We are able to create a new movie as the post, get, and the get by ID, and then we are able to create the new users with the get, post, put, delete, and everything. So everything is completed, and now we need to work on the relations part. So now we need to relate all of these collections together. But now let us see that how can we relate them. So let us see a diagram that how they all will be connected. So now let's start with that. So now let's see the relation between all of the collections. So first we have the admin, which adds the movies to the database. So we have the admin, a single collection, and then we have the movies as the particular collection. So admin adds the movies inside the database, inside the collections of the movies. So in the admin, we have the added movies key, in which we store an array, like which admin has stored how many movies inside the database. And in the movies, for every specific movie, we have a single admin. So an admin can have many movies because we have almost 2 or 3 admins inside our database. But inside the movies, so every movie can have only a single admin, but every admin can have multiple movies with that. So we have a relation between them. So we need to store the reference between them. So in the added movies, we add the references of all of the specific movies, and in the movies, we add the reference of that admin, that which admin has stored this movie. and then we come to the user. So the user creates the bookings. So it books the movies with the bookings collection. So the user creates the booking inside the bookings collection, and then in the user we have the bookings key in which we store the bookings of the user. So bookings would be an array in which the user creates a booking to the movie, and in the bookings we have a key of the user. So they all are related. So every single booking will have a single user. So here we have the reference. So the user have the bookings. So we have a reference of the bookings, and inside the bookings we have the reference of that user. And last but not the least, that we have the bookings of the specific movies. So we create the bookings of the movies because it's a movies application, and we create the bookings, and then the movies also adds that bookings to the bookings table. So in the movies we have the bookings key in which we have an array of all of the bookings of that particular movie, and in the bookings we have a movie collection as well. So every single movie will have multiple bookings, can have the multiple bookings, but for every single booking there would be only a single movie of that booking. So these are the relations between all of those collections. So the admin adds the movies, and then we add the reference of the admin and the added movies between them. And then once we will delete a movie, we should delete from the added movies as well, and from the movies collection as well. And same for the user and the booking. So if we delete a user, so the bookings of that user should also delete. And then if we delete a booking, so the booking should also be deleted from the user's booking array. And after that, the same for the movie. If the movie is deleted, then we need to delete all, then we need to delete from the admin as well, from the bookings as well. So these are the relations between all of them. So let's implement these relations inside our application. So now let's start with the admin first. So in the admin, we can move on to the admin.js on the admin model, and then you can see in the added movies we have an array of type of the string. But now this type would not be the string because this is the hard-coded type, and we can add any value to the type. But here we need different type. So we need to create a reference to the movies. So we need to just refer it to the movies. So how can we do that? So for creating a reference or for creating a relation, so we have a mongoose. So we need to import the mongoose.
Sorry, there was an audio issue. So that would be the mongoose.types.object.id because we need to refer to the particular object ID. So that would be the mongoose.types.object.id with that.
ID. So we need to give the reference to the collection. So here we are referring to the movie. So we need to add here the movie. So here in the edit movies, we need to add the type as the mongoose.types.object.id to refer to any object ID of any collection, and then we give the reference to the movie. So it means that we will just reference it to the movie model. And now we need to move on to the movie model as well. So in the movie.js, what can we do? So here the admin will not be type again of the string. So we need to remove here the type of the string again. And here as well, we will add here the types. So we can add here the mongoose. So we need to import the mongoose as well. So it should be the mongoose dot types, the types namespace, and then dot object ID. So we need to refer it to the object ID as well. And now this is also required. And now what we can do is before the required, we need to add the reference. So we can add the ref, and then we need to ref it with the admin. What we did here, so we just created an admin. So now we have the admin, and the admin will have the added movies array in which each object of that array will contain this specific movie ID. And then with the movie, we will add here the admin. So now let's start work on that. And now we need to just modify the controller functions to control both the operations. Like if we delete a movie, so we need to delete it from the admin as well. So here we need to do the changes. So what we need to do, so we are already storing the admin ID inside that. And now the admin ID is being stored. So the first step is already implemented with the JWT because we verify the token, and then we are storing that decrypted.id inside the admin ID. So that part is done. And now the second part is we need to store this movie inside the admin's edit movies as well. So how can we do that? So now inside the try, when we are saving a new movie, what can we do is now we can just remove that save code for now. And then before that, what we need to do is we need to create a session. So what will be the session? So we need to create the session in which in only single session, like session is just a time period, like in only single time period, we need to store that movie inside the movie collection as well and inside the admin collection as well. So we need to create the sessions. So we can just create the session with the const. It can be a session and it will be equals to, we need to add the await. It will be the mongoose So we need to import the mongoose.session. So we have this session inside the mongoose. So we have the start session with the mongoose. So it will just start a session inside that. And after that, with that, now what we need to do is first we need to get the admin. So how can we get the admin? So we can get the admin from the const as the admin user, and it will be equals to the await. So it should be the I think the admin. So we need to import the admin dot find by id. So we need to find the admin by its id, and then we need to just find by id of the admin id. So we are storing the admin id, so we need to find that admin from the admin id. So now we have just got the admin user as the await admin dot find by id, because we need to store this movie inside the admin bookings as well. So that's why we got this admin user. And after that, we can just create a transaction. So now we need to just start a transaction in which only single transaction these records would be saved. So let's start with that. So how can we do that? So we have the session variable. So the session creates a transaction, like it creates a transaction. So we have the function starts transaction. So it will just start a new transaction, and now it will just start a transaction. And after that, what can we do is, now when we will just save anything inside the database, we need to refer to this session. So only from this session we need to save all those records, and if the session is aborted in between any transaction, so all of the operations will be then aborted. So now let's start with that. So first we need to save the movie. So how can we do that? So here we have the movie. So what we will do, so we will just have here the await. It would be the movie. It would be the movie dot save. So we need to save this movie, but here we need to pass here this session. So we can pass here the session inside the session object. So we have the session, or we can give the key value pair of the session, but it's not necessary in the ES6. So now we need to just save the movie from that session. So now we are saving that movie, and now what we need to do is, after we have saved this movie, now we need to just move on with the admin as well. So in the admin, we have the admin user, and now we need to refer to the edit movies as well. So we have the edit movies key inside the admin. So now we need to push to the edit movies as well. So we have the edit movies dot, we need to add here the push function. So we have the push to a new record inside the edit movies. So we can have the push, and then what we need to do is we need to have here the movie. So we have just created a new movie. So we need to store that movie inside the edit movies. So we have that object ID with that. So we stored that movie with the admin.push. And after that, after we have pushed to the admin array, so we need to save that admin again as well. So what we can do again, so we can have the await. It would be the admin user. So we have the admin user dot save again. So we need to save the admin user as well. So in the save again, we need to use the session. So we need to store with the, so we need to save with the same session. So we need to pass here the session reference as well. And after all of these operations are performed, like after we have started the transaction, after we have saved the movie, and after we have just saved admin user as well. So after we have added the movie to the admin users edit movies as well, now all of the operations are completed for now for our side, and now we can just commit the transaction. Commit means now we can just stop the transaction. So again, we have the function inside the mongoose as the mongoose, or it can be, we have the session, so we can have the session dot commit transaction. So now we will just commit the transaction with that. So these are the steps that we need. So first, inside the try, we create a new movie instance, and we are already defining the admin as the admin ID. And then we have this session. So we will use the await as the mongoose.start session. So we will just start a session, and then we will just find the admin user. So with that ID, we will find that admin, and then we will just save that movie first. So the first step is we need to save that movie, but with the same session as we are just giving you the session. And with the same session, we need to store to the edit movies array as well inside the admin, and then we need to save the admin user as well. And after that, we can just commit that transaction. So after all of these steps are completed, then we can just commit that transaction. Now what we need to do is, now we need to just test the add movie as well. So now we can just move on to the postman, and then we can just test that add movie as well. So now we have the add movie. So now we need to remove this, and now we need to add here the post. So in the post, now what we need to do first, so if you are not logged in again, so I recommend you to log in again. Like you can just click on the send again, and then it will just create a token. So you can just copy that token again, and then what you can do is you can just move on to the post request, and then first you need to provide the token, because the token is very important. So we are decrypting the ID of the user from that token only, and then we can move on to the body. And then what can we do? So we have the new movie again, so we can just change this, and then we have the description as the new release movie, and then we have the AK, and then we have the release date as we have the 29th August 2022. Then we have the poster URL as the sample. Then we have the featured. So if we now just click on the send, and now you can see now we got all of the things, and now we got the admin ID as well, we got the admin as well, and then we got the ID of the movie as well. But if we now just move on to the admin, if we now just move on, and then if we now just get all of the admins from the user, I think in the admin controller we don't have any function to get all of those admins, so we can just create that function as well. So we can just create another function. It can be export const, it can be get admins, it will be equals to the async, and then we need to add a request response at the next as the parameters as well. And now what can we do is now we can just define the let admins, and then we can have the try catch block. So in the try, the admins will be equals to the await, it will be the admin dot find. So we need to find all of those records, and after that we can run here the try catch block as well. If we get an error, so we will just return console.log the error, and after that we can just check that if we don't have the admins or admins is a false value, if there is an error with the database, so we can just return the response.status to the 500, and then we can add the JSON again as the message. It would be the internal server error, and after that if everything is successful, then we can just return the response.status would be equals to the 200, and .json it would be the admins. If we now just save, and now we need to move on to the admin routes as well. We need to create another route to get all of those admins, so we can just have the get route after that. So we have the admin router.get, it would be the empty path, and then we can have here the get admins. So we have the get admins with that. If we now save, if we now just move on to the postman again, if we now just click on the get, if we now just click on the send, and now we will just get all of those admins. And now you can see now we got one admin, and now inside that admin array, now you can see in the added movies we have something. So we have the ID of that movie that we have just stored. So we have just stored that ID of that movie. So if we now just move on to the post requests, and there you can see as well, and now we have the 3 idiots, and now we have the same ID of that movie that we have just created. In the end we have the 0b4, and here as well in the end we have the 0b4. And now it means that the relations between both admin and the movies are working perfectly fine. So if we create a new movie with that admin, and now you can see we have the added movies of that admin as well, and now we are able to store that movie inside the added movies of the admin. So it means that everything is working perfectly fine. And now we can just test with another movie as well. So we can just test with the pk, and then if we now just click on the send again, and now you can see now we have new movie, and then we have the same admin with that. If we now just create another send request, and now you can see now we got both the movies with that. So we got this movie as well, and this newly created movie as well. So it means that everything is working perfectly fine, and now we have just cracked the first problem inside that. And now we have just stored the admin, and now we have stored the movies inside the added movies as well, and here as well we have the reference of that admin as well. So congratulations on first step, and now we need to move on to the next bigger step. And now that relation part has been completed, and now the next step is now we need to create a booking, and we need to relate it with the user as well. So how can we do that? So we need to move on to the user.js, and here we need to define another key, and it can be a booking. So it can be a bookings, and it will be an array again of the object. So it will be array of the object of the type. So it would be of the type of the mongoose dot types dot object id. So we need to refer to the object id, and then the booking will be then referred. We can add here the ref, and the ref would be equals to a booking. So we need to refer to the booking collection. So we need to refer it to the booking model collection, and then now you can see now we have the bookings, and then we have the type equals to the mongoose dot types of object id. So we need to store that booking as well inside the users as well, and then we have the reference to the booking. And now we need to move on to the bookings, and then here you can see now we have the movie as well. So we need to refer to the movie as well. So it should not be the string, it should be the mongoose dot types so it should be the mongoose. We have dot types dot object id. So we need to refer it to the movie as well. So we have the type of the mongoose dot types of the object id, and for the movie we need to refer to the movie as well. So it would be the movie. So we need to refer it to the movie collection. So now every booking will contain a single movie and the single user as well. So what can we do? So in the user, we need to again have here the mongoose dot types dot object id, and then for the user we need to create a ref to the user. So we can have the ref to the user as well. So we have the ref to that user. So now I think it should work, because as we saw in the PPT, so the booking is connected with the movie and the user as well. So now inside the booking, so we need to move on to the bookings controller. So when we create a new booking, in the new booking, so here we need to validate some things. Like here we have the movie as well, and then we have the user as well. So first we need to validate both of them. So before creating a new booking, now what can we do is, now we can just define let as the existing movie. Is now first we need to check if the movie is already there or not. So we can have the let existing movie, and or it can be undefined for now, and then we can just define another let variable, and it can be let as the existing user. We are the existing user, so both will be undefined as of now. And then we will just use again the try catch block, because these are the database operations and it can fail as well. So we can have the console.log if we get an error while connecting or while communicating with the database. And after that we can have the existing movie. So we have the existing movie will be equals to await. So we can have here the movie, so we need to refer it to the movie collection. So we have the movie dot find by id. So we need to find that movie by id of that movie, as we are just defining it the movie. So we need to find movie by its id. And after that, what can we do again? So we can move on with the user as well. So we have the existing user will be equals to the await, and it would be the user. So we need to refer to the user collection dot find by id. Then I have the find by id of the user, and then we need to just pass here the id of that user. So these are the things that we need. And now we can just run some validations as well. Like if we don't have the existing movie, so then we can just return the response dot status would be equals to the 404, and then we can send the JSON message, and a message as the movie not found with given id. After that we can just check same for the user. Like if we don't have the user, then we can just return the response dot status would be equals to, we can have the 404 dot JSON like message, it should be the movie or it should be a user not found with given id. After that we can just save. After we got all of those successful, and after we have passed all of these validation checks, now what can we do is, now we can create a booking. So here we are already creating a booking, and then we are saving that booking as well. So now before saving that bookings again, so now we need to store that booking inside the existing movie and with the existing user as well, as we have just defined inside that admin and the movie. So we need to create the same session for them as well. So we can just have here the session again. So we can just create another session. So we can have the const, it can be a session, would be equals to the mongoose dot start session. So we have the start session again, and then we need to just create a new transaction as well for the session. So we have the session dot start transaction. So now we can have the start transaction, and now we need to just start a new transaction with that. So it should be the await, because it's a promise. This will not be the await, I think. So we need to remove that await from there. So before we have created the movie, so we need to push to the bookings of the user as well. So now what can we do is, now we can just first get the user. So we have the existing user dot, we can refer to the bookings, and dot we can just push to the bookings of that user. So we can just have here the push. So we need to create a push method to the bookings, and then we need to push a new booking for the user. So we have the new bookings, so we will just send the newly created booking, and then we need to do the same for that movie as well. So we can have the existing movie dot, we have the bookings dot push. So we will just push another booking for that movie as well. So that booking will be equals to the booking that we are just creating. So here we are just pushing to the array of the user and then the movie. After that we need to just save all of them. So the booking is already being created, and now we have already stored their values, and now we need to save all of them. So first we will just save the movie or the user. So we will just have the await, it should be the existing user dot save. So in the save we need to store the same session for the same. So we have this session, we need to store in the same session, and then again we need to use the await. So we will have the existing movie dot save. So we need to save to the movie as well, and with the same session only. So we have the same session, and after we have saved everything, after we have saved the user and the movie, now what can we do is now we can just save that booking as well. So we can have here the await, it should be the booking dot save. So we need to save that booking as well, and then we can just provide the same session for the booking as well. So in this single session only, we need to just store inside the users array, inside the movies array, and with the bookings array as well. After that, we can just commit that transaction if everything works fine. So we can have session dot commit transaction. So the transaction would be committed after that. So this will be the steps for that. So I think we don't need the booking equals to the await. Okay. So now we are just creating a session, and then we have just started the transaction of that session, and in the same transaction we are just storing all of those values inside the different collections. And then we have some validations already there, like if we don't have the booking, then we will just send the response.status at the 500 as the unable to create a booking. And now with all of that, if we can just save, and I think we need to move on to the bookings as well. So now we have referred to the bookings.object id, and here as well we have referred to the object id. I think inside the movie we haven't referred to that object id inside the bookings. Yes, we were making a mistake, but now I caught that mistake. So here with the type, we need to create the type of the mongoose again. So it should be the mongoose dot types dot object id, and then we need to do here the ref as well. So we have the ref, and then we need to refer it to the booking. We had missed that part, but now we have figured it out, and now I think all of those relations are complete with that. So if we now just save, if we now just move on to the application, if we now just create a new booking, so we can just define here the movie. So first, so now we don't need to provide here the new movie as the string. So now we need to provide here the ID of that movie. So now we have just newly created the movie as the PK. So we can just get that ID of that movie. So we can just copy their ID, and then we can just paste their ID here. So now we don't need to store the sample string. So now we need to store their actual IDs. So we have this ID, and then we need to create for the user as well. So we can just get all of these users. So now we have this John Michael as the user. So we can just copy that ID of that user, and then we can just move on to the booking, and then inside the user we can just paste. So we have this record, and after that we can just define the seat number as any number. So we don't have any validation as of now for the seat number. So we can have the seat number as D2, and then we have the date. So we can have the date of the September 1. So with all of that, if we can just send a new request, and now you can see now we are able to create a new booking as well with the movie. So we have created a booking with that movie, and then we have created a new date, then we have the user as well, then we have the ID as well. Now we need to verify it with all of those fields. So we can just get a movies. So we can just get all of those movies. So we can just get, and then you can see here in the last movie that we have just created the PK. Here you can see in the bookings. So now we have a booking for this movie as well. So now you can see now we have the bookings for that movie as well, and then the ID is 5 at the end, and then we can see that ID as the C5 here as well. So now the movie is also perfect, it is also perfectly working fine, and now we can just get the users as well, and now we should see the value inside the bookings of the user as well of that specific movie. If we just click on the send, now you can see now we got the bookings as well. So now it means that everything is working perfectly fine, and now we are able to get all of those things which we required for that application. So now we have got everything with that. So user have a new booking with that ID, and then we can just get that booking from that ID as well if we want. So what can we do is then we can just move on to the bookings controller, and then what can we do is now we can just have a new function to get a booking. So we can have export const as the get booking by ID. So it should be equals to the async again. It should be the request, response, and the next as well. And after that, what can we do? First, we can get the ID. So we can have the const. We can have the const and the ID will be equal to the request.params.id. And then what can we do is now we can just have the let as the booking will be equals to an undefined value, and then we can use the try catch block as well. So we can have the try catch, and the catch, if we get an error we will just return console.log the error. After that, inside the try, what can we do is now we can just create a booking would be equals to the await. It should be the booking dot find by id. So we have again the find by id function, so we will just find that booking from that id, and then we will just pass here the id, and then we will just have some validation, like if we don't have the booking, then we can just again return the response dot status should be equals to 500, and then we have the JSON as well as the message. It can be server error or anything like unexpected error. It can be an expected error, and then if we already have the booking, then we can just return the response dot status would be equals to, we can have the 5 should be equals to the 200, and then we can just send here the JSON as the booking only. So we'll send here the booking only with that. So now we can just move on to the booking routes, and then we need to define a booking route as well. So with the booking router, it should be the booking dot get. It should be the get, and then we will just get the booking from that id. So we'll just get the booking of that id, and then we have the new booking as well. So we can just have the get booking from id. If we now save, if we now just move on to the application, like now you can see, now we can create another booking, or we can just get this booking only. So we can just get that id, and then we can just paste that id inside the get request. So we have the booking, that's the id of that booking. So if we now just click on this send, I think we got an error. I think we haven't defined that parameter URL, so we need to define the parameter URL as well. So this declares a param variable. So now if we now just click on this end again, so now we should see the movie, and now you can see now we have the movie as well, and the status is also 200, which is okay. Everything is working perfectly fine. So now we have created that booking, and now the next step is we have another next step. Like if we want to just delete a booking, then we want to delete it from that movie as well, from the movie bookings as well, and for the user bookings as well. So we need to do it with this same approach with the session. So we can have here the bookings router dot, we can have a delete operation, and then we need to get the id again from the delete. So we can have the id on an id, and after that we will create a new controller function with that. So after all of those functions, we can create another function. It can be export the delete booking, and here it will also be async function. So we will have here the async, and after that what we need to do, then first we need to get the id. So we can have the const id will be equals to the request dot params dot id. After that what we need to do is now we need to just define here a new booking. So it can be a red booking, and now we need to run the try catch block again. So we can have the try catch again with that. With the try catch, we will just create everything with the try catch. So here inside the try, what can we do is now we can just create a new booking. So it can be the booking will be equals to, it will be the await. So it should be the await, and then we have used the function inside the user as well. So it should be the bookings dot find by id and remove. So we have this function, but here we need some more things as well, because we need to delete the booking from the movies and from the users as well. So to refer the collection of the movies and bookings, we have a function here, the populate. So we have here the populate function, which will just populate, or which will just show the records, and which will just collect the records of their reference collections as well. So in the populate, we need to call here a string. So we need to pass here the string, and string we need to pass here the keys of that string. So here we need to call here the user. So now we need to grab that object of the user, and for the movie as well. So the populate is used to just grab that records of that specific keys collection as well. So it will just get that user. So the populate will just populate the records of that keys collection. So it will just get the record of the user's collection. It will just get full object of the user. And if we provide the space and then we provide the movie as well, so it will just grab the record of the movie as well. So we have the await as the find by add and remove. And here as well we can use a session. So we can have the const session. So it would be the await can be the mongoose dot start session. So again we can just start a transaction. So we can have the session dot start transaction. So after we start the transaction, now what can we do is, now if you will just log the value of the booking, then it will give you the whole user object and the whole movie object as well. So what can we do with that? So we can do one thing. So we can just first move on to the booking dot user field. So now we have the user, and then we can move on to the user dot bookings inside the bookings array. So if we want to delete that record from the bookings array, so if you want to delete this booking from that bookings array, we have a function to call the pull. So we have the pull function inside the mongoose to pull that record from that bookings array. So it will just delete this booking from that user's booking array. So we can just use the pull, and it should be equals to the booking. So we need to just remove this booking, and after that we need to do same with the movies. So we can have the booking dot movie dot bookings dot pull. So again we need to use the pull record. We need to pull a record again from there, and it should be again the booking. And after that what we need to do is again we need to just save that record as well. So we need to save those records. We should also use the await as well, because so here as well we need to use the await, and here as well we need the await. After that we need to just save their records as well. So we can again have the await. It should be the booking dot movie dot save. So we need to save their records as well, but to save we need to pass here the sessions as well. So we need to pass this session, and then same for the user as well. So we can have the booking dot user dot save, then we need to pass the same session again. So in the same session we need to just do all of those things, and after that if everything works fine, then we can just commit the transaction with the session dot commit transaction. So if we now save, if we now just move on to the application, like now you can see, if we now just get all of those bookings. So if we now just click on the get, so I have created another booking as well. I think we don't have the get all bookings, so we can just move on to the database, and then we can just refresh the collection of the bookings. So here you can see now we should have, so we need to move on to the bookings, then we should have 2 bookings here. So now we have 2 bookings with that, with the movie this and the user this. So now what we can do is now we can just grab this booking ID which ends with 9016. So we can just add this movie ID. So we can just get this booking ID. So we can just move on to the postman, and then we can just click on the delete, and then we can just paste this ID. If we now just click on the send, and I have added a console.log of the booking as well, so we can just verify that log as well. So here this is the final code. So it should be the booking equals to the await. We have the bookings.find by add and remove, and then we need to pass here the ID, and then we need to populate the records of the user and movie, and then this will be the final code. So now we can just move on to the MongoDB, and then we can just refresh the collection of that bookings. So we can just refresh those collection, and after that what can we do is now we can just grab the first ID of that. So we can remove this booking ID with the 016 at the end. So if we now just pass this ID here, we now just pass this ID, if we now just click on send, so now that should be deleted, and now you can see now we got the message as this successfully deleted. And now we can see that we had this movie booking ID as the 016, and now we can just check with the user if the user still has that booking. So if we now just save, and now you can see now the user don't have that booking ID. Now we can just move on with the movies as well. So we can just move on with the movies, and then the movies also will not have that booking ID. Now you can see in that bookings, that new booking, now we don't have that booking ID. So it means that everything is working perfectly fine. So now we have completed the API of our project, and now we can just add the missing things of our API as well. Like in the users, we can just get all of those movies, all of those book movies. So for that we can just create another function. So it can be export const, and it can be the get bookings of user. So we can just define this function. So it should be equals to again the async, and then it will contain the request, response, and the next as the parameters. We can have these 3 parameters, and after that what can we do now? First we need to get the ID of the user as well. So we can have the const ID will be equals to the request dot params dot ID. So we need to refer to the ID. Now what we need to do is first we need to define here the let bookings. So here we can just define try catch block again. So we can have here the try catch. So in the catch we can just provide here the error, and then we can just return console.log the error. So it should be the return console.log the error. And now in the try what we can do again, so we can just provide the bookings would be equals to, we can have the await, and then we can just refer to the bookings collection. So it should be the bookings.find by ID. So we can just provide here the bookings.find only. So in the find we can just provide here the query. So we can just provide that user from that booking. So we can have that user inside that booking. So in the user we need to provide the ID of the user. Like now we need to find all of those records with the user's ID. So now in the bookings we are just defining the query, like we need to just find all of those records if the user ID matches this ID, and now it will just provide us all of those collections. So it will just provide all of those records, and then we can just check some validation, like if the bookings is a false value, then we can just return. the response.status will be equals to, we can provide the 500.json, and it will be equals to the message like unable to get bookings. After that, we can just return the response.status to the 200.json. It will contain the bookings only. If we now just save, so now we need to move on to the user routes as well, and here as well we can just define another request. So it should be the user route dot get the bookings slash id. So here what is the route? So we have the user slash booking slash id of that user, so we need to provide the id with that. If we now just save, and now we need to just define that function as well. So it should be the get users bookings, get bookings of that user. So if we now save, if we now just move on to the Postman again, we can move on to the user, and then it should be the user slash bookings as that id of that user. So we have only one user as of now, so we can just copy that record, then we can just provide the id of that user. So if we now just click on the send, so now you can see, now we got this booking with that user. So we have this user with that booking, so now we only have one booking with that user as well. Everything is working perfectly fine. And here as well you can see in the MongoDB we only have one booking as of now with this id AF, and here as well we have the id of the AF. Everything is working perfectly fine. If we have missed a route or a controller function, then we will create that later. So now our API is complete, and now let's move on to the front end. So congratulations on creating that complex API and very advanced API. So now let's move on to the front end of our application.